this in the Pledge of Allegiance and to salute our flag. So can we still call you Chief Hagel?
You bet.
All right, Chief Hagel, if you'll please lead us in the salute.
Sure, if you'll place your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Tom. Happy birthday to you.
That's great.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you to our accompaniment and all our fellow choir members with our lead singer over here, Director Holt. We thank you so much. And with that, can we proceed with the roll call, please? Yes.
Director Huxley. Yes. Director Lang.
Here.
Director Holt. Here. Director Huxley.
Yes.
Thank you. And as a reminder, as our recording secretary departs the room, to leave your microphones on so she can hear your comments while she's in the other room. And with that, we'll go with special presentations, and I'll ask our general manager to introduce this topic, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair Nichols. Tonight we have a presentation from somebody who's very familiar to us, Tim Hagel. I actually don't have a prepared introduction for Tim, but Tim's, gosh, he was an MRCA ranger, a CRPD ranger. He's been all sorts of things through the Sheriff's Department, all the way up including the Chief of Police for Thousand Oaks. This board knows he's been recognized at pretty much this highest honor we have at the Gratitude Circle by being inducted into our Gratitude Circle. But what he has been doing, really more than you could ask of anyone, the amount of effort and energy he's put into making Safe Passages is what it is today. Countless hours of work. It showed such success and changed the lives of a lot of kids and families in our community. So he's here tonight to talk to us about the Safe Passage program, which has been kind of his passion project for the last, 7 years or something. So Tim Hagel.
So if you can start we're doing a secret signal on for her to start the Safe Passage PowerPoint. So I see Rochelle out there. That's awesome. She can help out at any given time, and you can go ahead and start the slide showing. Before I go on to the next slide, I tell everybody every single day, Safe Passage is not a program. It's not an event. It's not an idea. It is the community. There are so many stakeholders. And when we go back and look at 2020, the Park District pivoted overnight, while other organizations across the country became paralyzed. The Park District is nimble, and that included the support and understanding overnight of the needs for helping the kids in the Caneo, which really all the credit goes back to the Park District, not only for the origination of Safe Passage, but the day-to-day programming maintenance. And before I start into the next slide, I want to point out 2 days before COVID struck, I was talking to Kurt Gunning in Newbury Park at Portia Park, and he said, Tim, we're going to have to figure out some programming stuff. It's too popular. We've gone from 120 to 190 kids in a week. That was before COVID. Now, fast forward with the nimbleness of the Park District, we peaked at 600 kids in April. 600 kids. We now have about 400 kids. So when you look at a devastating pandemic and national emergency, I look at completely different. I look at where we had 127 kids. We're going to come out of COVID with over 400 kids receiving mentorship and help every day of their life because of the Park District. So don't let that get the goat to you. But talking about goats, let's do the next slide. This was last week, Safe Passage kids with your staff out on a goat trip. That video was chalked with your staff. Some of them paid, some of them volunteers, some of them AmeriCorps workers. But that's a typical week at Safe Passage through COVID. So while everything else retracted in the world because of your support for the community, it went fourfold for activities. So I'm going to go through these slides really fast because you all know what it is because you created it. So Safe Passage originated out of the Homework Club, which originated out of hundreds of acts of violence in a 2-year period in the Conejo Valley as the gangs had reached epicenter in two micro communities in the Conejo Valley and had reached such a momentum and strength that we were having drive-by shootings and stabbings and racketeering and all kinds of problems. And the Park District and the city joined together and took action with the Homework Club. Tell everybody, all I did was put all the little pieces together and became a cheerleader. That's really it, to let the public know so many people in the Conejo Valley to this day can't conceptualize that we have working poor in our community, that we have people with, 10 people inside of an apartment, or people that cannot pay their $50 Edison bill. And we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of families like that. And those are the families that the Park District and the city and the school district and the police department have joined together. You can do the next one. We can go ahead and skip that. There we go. What does it take? Back in 2014, I came over, I had been the chief of police of Fillmore, which had a serious gang problem. And I realized that these neighborhoods that were affected were the same neighborhoods that were my paper route. I knew that these neighborhoods could be back completely functional, which they are today, 100% functional. And that was whatever we were doing prior to 2014 as a police department, all we had to do is stop doing whatever we were doing, because what we knew what we were doing didn't work. It didn't work. Gangs grew every year. For over 30 years, the gangs in Thousand Oaks grew. We spent millions of dollars a year fighting the gangs, the war on gangs. None of it worked. So we changed the paradigm, partnered with the Park District and the city and the school district, and we gave the kids hope, a sense of belonging, and grit. So here's what it expanded to from your Homework Club. Conejo Rec and Park is the lead. The police department, Cal Lutheran University is involved on a daily basis with Safe Passage. They have 3 full-time AmeriCorps workers that work in your facilities every day. Of course, the Conejo Unified School District, they provide thousands of meals a week for Safe Passage kids every single week since COVID broke out. Moore Park College, we're working on setting up a summer camp there right now. Art Trek, Kiwanis, and Rotary have given not only the financial backbone for 2020 for Safe Passage to be able to feed these kids every week, but the staffing with the volunteers. So our goal is simple, literacy. Gangs only want one thing. They need to survive, and that is by recruitment. Recruitment only occurs in gangs if you can keep the kids illiterate. The average literacy of a 25-year-old male in a United States prison is about 4th to 6th grade. That's it. So it's pretty simple. Keep them illiterate and you can put them in jail or prison. Get them literate and you can keep them out of jail or prison. So we decided to turn the gangs model upside down. The gangs are really good. They're better than the cops. They're better than the teachers. And that is that they have been active in the Canal Valley for 35 years. The average company's on the New York Stock Exchange for 20 years or 22 years, but the gangs are outlast corporations because they know what the kids need. They need a sense of belonging. They need understanding, security, finance, food, shelter. So we just simply took all of that in partnership with the Park District and the school district, and Safe Passage provides it. How do we do it? We, any community can have STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. Like, that's so boring. And a really good community can have STEAM. They can add some art in there, sprinkle a little art in there. No, not the Canal Valley. Okay. You don't live in the Canal Valley unless you love the outdoors. So the Canal Valley has STEAMO, and that's what we do with the kids, because the outdoors is just as important, if not more important, than the other elements of STEM. In the case of these 400 to 600 kids, they don't have backyards. There are no backyards for them. So their backyards are the Canal Recreation and Park District and Costco open space areas. So, interesting. The city's highest award started in 2021 and has come out of COVID. And the city had to decide who to give the first, if we can stop it 1 sec. If the city had to decide who to give the first award to, I had literally nothing to do with it. And they called and they said, we've gone over everything and we have a Canal Recreation and Park District employee that we want to give the city's highest honor to coming out of COVID. His name's Wilbert Ack. And he was raised in Safe Passage, witnessed his first drive-by shooting at 5 years old. And Wilbert is a straight A student at Moore Park College, a product of Canal Recreation and Park District. And here's what Wilbert says about Canal Recreation and Park District.
Hi, I'm Claudia Villa. Hi, I'm Claudia Villa-Lapinian. I'm the mayor of the city of Thousand Oaks, and I am so excited because today we are presenting the inaugural Community Commitment Award. The city of Thousand Oaks has so many volunteers, many of whom really are never recognized. And today I am presenting one of those unsung heroes to you. He is 18 years old, graduated from Thousand Oaks High School, is attending Moore Park College. It is my pleasure to present, after 1 year of darkness, to a ray of light. And that ray of light is Wilbert Ack. Congratulations.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity, first of all. Very appreciated.
Wilbert was chosen because of his volunteer work. He's become the right-hand person to our former police chief, Tim Hagel. Tim Hagel founded Safe Passage Youth Foundation. And with that, I would like to bring over Tim Hagel to hear from him directly why Wilbert is such a wonderful person.
Wilbert is an amazing young man. When I think about Wilbert, I think about a service heart. This is a person in the Canal community that puts everyone else above himself. The hierarchy is simple. He meets the needs of his family, and he meets the needs of his community. And Wilbert, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
And now I would like to introduce the Vice President of Community Affairs, Amy Cummins, with Wilbert Hospital. She has some really wonderful things to say about Wilbert. Congratulations, Wilbert. We are so proud of you. We are humbled and honored to have him in our community. He really embodies everything that is good. His lens is always focused outward on what he can do for his family, for his community, and certainly the city of Thousand Oaks. So truly, we are just so proud of you. And as we like to say, you are the change that we want to see in the world. So thank you for all that you're doing for our community. You're going to be a we're looking forward to everything that you have to offer us. Congratulations, Wilbur. To see why Wilbur is being praised and honored today, let's take a closer look at some of the work that Wilbur has done.
Volunteering for State Passage makes me happy. Being there for these kids makes me happy. This program has given me the chance to connect with these kids. I know what they're going through on a daily. Have you ever been 11 before? No, really. And I know how it feels. And some of them moments aren't pretty. And I know for a fact I don't mind feeling pretty. Growing up, I never really had a home. He had his own demons that he was battling. Sadly, he passed away. And from then on, I just decided to help people. If I can help people not become like that, let their story end like that, then I did a good job. What I want them to get out of this, like at this age, is that it's okay to enjoy being food. And when they're older, it's to hopefully they take some of the lessons I've taught them and use them out into the world in their own way. So anyone in the state of Thousand who is wanting to volunteer, just do it. You will be surprised how much you will impact by you just doing one simple thing. Thank you, Dr.
Wilbur,
Wilbur, you're setting the example
Go to
for
the
so
next
many other young.
Wilbert, I think, started volunteering for the Park District when he was like 12 years old, and is working at 2 different centers and taking a full-time load at Moore Park College. And he just, you have so many Wilberts in the Recreation and Park organization. Many of them have gone through Safe Passage, starting with the Homework Club, and now they're in college, the first kids. And I just want to end with, as we talk about college, back about a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, Rochelle and Tim and I got together with Cal Lutheran University, and they said, hey, there's a thing called AmeriCorps in the United States. It's the Domestic Peace Corps, and we want to bring them to Thousand Oaks. Would you be interested in hosting these Peace Corps, AmeriCorps workers? And, you know, Tim and Rochelle were scratching their head for about 2 seconds, and I said, yes, we'll take them, right? And then I looked at them for forgiveness. And it has turned out to be an incredible program. The kids are full-time with Caneo Rec and Park at Borchard Center and Dover and Hendricks. They are with all these kids and many other more community member kids every day. And it's a program that has just taken off with Jade and Sonia and Miguel. Sadly, they graduate this summer in June. You don't want them to. From the university and their fellowship with AmeriCorps, but next year we'll have new AmeriCorps workers. And it's just such a great program. We couldn't have had that happen without the vision of Rochelle and Tim. So that's really it, unless anybody else has any questions. I just want to thank everybody.
I have a question about, this was all, this whole program is just grade school children?
So it started with the intent of kinder through 5th. Then it grew from kinder to 6th. Now we have kinder through 7th. The problem is filling that gap till they get to middle school. Our intention is to hand them off to Boys and Girls Club in middle school, YMCA, and frankly, sports, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, you know, all these assistant league, charity, like all these other organizations. And that came out of that. We had done a study that I didn't bore you with, but back in 2014, we did a study, and the 2 gangs in town were really grooming by 3rd grade, the kids. They were grooming them by 3rd grade, full-blown grooming, lifting 12-year-old kids through windows, you know, and 10-year-old kids through windows to do burglaries. So we realized we really got to target that K through 5th is huge. As I always said, that there's nobody on death row today in California that spent their Saturdays doing STEM at the parks here. Really. Nobody. So,
Okay, so there's, the other organizations are really taking, the junior high can be very tough.
handing them off to them. Literally, that's where the name came out of, was the safe passage, give them safe passage to middle school. And then, so we get them from first 5 in early education, preschool. And then the Park District Safe Passage takes them kinder through middle school, and then give them safe passage there, pass them off to the sports programs, all of the programs we know that are robust at the higher grades.
Thank you.
Director Huffer?
Yeah, Tim, I was wondering, I remember several years ago, you were talking about possibly doing some kind of study to determine, be able to quantify the effectiveness of the program. It's obvious looking at it, but, people like to see proof. I'm just wondering, you have people like Wilbert, have you done any kind of follow-up with the kids who started with the K through 6 program and see, because that's been 5, 6, 7 years, to see where they are today?
Yeah, I'm going to first answer that qualifying. I did not tee you up and prep, like we did not prep each other on this question, right?
Right.
Okay. The answer is, I just noticed those slides weren't in here. I was given a program earlier this week, chock full of statistics, is from 2014 to 2021, gang crime in Thousand Oaks has gone down over 40%. Okay. Now, let's talk about from 1987 to 2014, gang crime never went down. Gang population just increased every single year. Gang population is plummeting in the last 4 years. So we have those stats. We have the stats of every single crime in those micro communities, and those are dropping. The Newbury Park gang dropped by their gang population almost 15% last year. That's monumental. That's huge. So we're following every single kid. The Park District's done a great job documenting all the way back to 2012 with the Homework Club. Not a single safe, and thousands have gone through. Not a single safe passage kid has jumped into a gang. Not one. So that's really the ultimate number.
Director Cuthbert, did you have any questions?
Actually, that was my question. So thank you, Director Huffer, because I was thinking, did I miss that? How far is our gang
I noticed the
population gone
slides
down?
weren't in there. Yeah.
So no, I'm really glad that we got those stats, and that's really actually amazing. And I'm really glad that you're going with the younger kids, because that's what makes the big impression. I know my daughter, she works with programs in the state of Washington with the juvenile justice system. And so they're usually getting the kids after they're in jail. She's working with older kids. And she's often said, it would be a lot easier to keep them out of jail repeatedly if they never came to jail. The problem they have is that they get a lot of repeat. She says sometimes they learn to be even better criminals once they're in jail. So working with these kids to stop them from getting into gangs to start with is just absolutely phenomenal. And if they're not in gangs, I'm assuming that none of these kids have gone to jail.
Not a single safe passage kid has gone to jail. And we have a saving with your staff that just was made up organically, that the first 4,000 days matter. The first 4,000 days of your life is really setting the course, whether you see acts of violence, whether you're loved, a sense of belonging, and to what you're saying about your daughter, the same thing, right? Is that had they been front loaded with the community caring for them, they wouldn't be incarcerated as teenagers and young adults.
I think it's really impressive because when she was at one time working in counseling with kids, she said they have a different reality than we do. Their fathers, their stepfathers, their uncles, they've all been in jail. They don't really question the fact that they're in jail. That's just part of their lifestyle. So when you can break that, I know I'm rambling on, but I was just so impressed. And I just want to say, you said that you just put the puzzle pieces together. Well, you could have a puzzle in a box with puzzle pieces and they don't look like anything. What you really need is somebody to sit down and put the puzzle pieces together. So don't, I'm sure you're not downgrading what you're doing. You're being humble. But if you don't have somebody putting puzzle pieces together, even though all the pieces are there, you just have a box of nothing. So thank you for putting the puzzle pieces together and getting all of this going. And I really appreciate it in the beginning because
I've been to a few safe passages activities. And when I came in, I'd say, well, wait a minute. We've got Art Trek here, and we've got the police department here, and oh, we're here at the Reagan Library, and there. And so I was noticing that without you even saying it. I thought, well, this isn't just a couple of CRPD people here. You've got the whole community involved in this, and that takes effort. So thank you so much for all that you're doing. This is an amazing program.
Thank you, and thank your staff.
Director Ling.
Yes, number of questions. How many, if you have an estimate, young people have been through the Safe Passage program?
Ooh, thousands. I don't have the exact number. We have boxes from, it's one of our projects for AmeriCorps, we just haven't had time to get to it, is we have boxes from 2012 of daily rosters, you know, before all the computer days and everything we're doing now. And so I've gone through them. We have those, and it's thousands of kids. Our first kids are going into college now. So the first ones, because remember, they in 2012 they were in kindergarten. Some were in 5th grade, and the first ones are now in college, and they're doing great, fantastic.
Do you have some type of reunions or alumni events?
So it's interesting you say that. What we have found, you know, everything has unintended consequences, right? So the whole idea on paper is to pass them off in middle school and high school, and we're done. See you later. Bye. It's like sending your kids off, right? But they've been programming in the Park District Safe Passage program since they were in kindergarten. A lot of them have basically anxiety leaving in middle school and high school, and the reunions occur almost on a daily basis. They come back and work in your centers. So both major, you know, regional park centers have many Safe Passage kids now that are in junior high school and high school out of our program, and they're volunteering back. But an interesting situation has occurred with Westminster Clinic, which is a free, incredible free clinic in Thousand Oaks. And many of the Safe Passage kids during high school volunteer and intern at Westminster Medical Clinic. And they have taken many of our kids and pushed them off into college too. Lisa and her team at Westminster Clinic.
Are you aware of any similar programs throughout the United States through AmeriCorps? Or are they aware of Safe Passages in other communities?
I've asked everywhere through Association of Chiefs of Police and haven't found anything. I know why. I know the answer why. That most entities at municipal government are like this. You know, out in the public, they're all, everything's kumbaya and everything's good. But for the police chief to be on speed dial with the parks general manager and the chief librarian and the president of the local university, usually they have many adversarial relationships over whatever issues. And so that's the key. And I believe that's why you don't see it going on. You have to be on speed dial with each other, whether you're the president of the college, the head of the library, the school superintendent, or the parks general manager. They have to like each other, and they got to be able to just call each other on the cell phone and say, here's what we need to do. And that's the real key ingredient.
As Director Cusworth mentioned, you know, it's like a box of puzzle pieces, and until you have a Tim Hagel and or your associates working and bringing parts and putting them in place, it's important because we all know that you retired from the sheriff's department, you're going to reach a point where you're going to retire from other activities, to make sure that this puzzle that you're putting together remains, you know, whether you glue it to a board and hang it up, but to make sure that it can be replicated, you know, by other Tim Hagels in our community.
Yeah, I've been really conscious of that, Director Lang. I thought my plan, I think back to like crazy back in high school of listening about government 5-year plans and 3-year plans. So mine is 15 years. I'm figuring, and Jim and I have had long conversations about it. I'm already thinking 15 years out with Safe Passage, both on financing, on what are these kids doing, tracking these kids, the next kids coming up. So in my mind, it's 15 years. I picked that based on my age. And I figured 15 years, then it's time for someone else. I'll have other things to be worrying about in 15 years.
And one last thing, and kind of back to when, reunions or kids who've been through the program, getting together and talking about their experiences and the impact of Safe Passage in their current life on the college campus or whatever. I think it would be worthwhile, and again, I don't know, how many opportunities you have to talk to some of the alumni, but I really think there's some important information that these kids have, having been through the program.
Yeah, we haven't done that, but I love the idea. I mean, it makes sense, right? Because it's like a family. It's a family of stakeholders making it all together, but they become family. The whole idea of all these field studies that you all have attended at Reagan Library and all of these literacy days, these are kids that live in opposite neighborhoods that have been antagonistic towards each other for 40, 35 years. And so these kids are growing up together from two opposite neighborhoods, and they've been doing that since 2012. So I think a reunion, it sounds pretty cool.
Okay, I could go on and on, as you know, my involvement, but I just want to thank you and all the people that you have included in making this such a great program, and I'd, like to see it, as we all would, replicate it in other areas that have gang problems. So thank you, Tim, very, very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you again, Chief, for the presentation. It was a good reminder of some of these things. I saw the picture at the library. I remember being there with that flock of kids. It's a great thing. And then at the CLU, we're talking to some of the staff there, how they were trying to track all the statistics and all those things. So you're great. Get those kids something to do. But just the variety of things. I've heard the puzzle theme here several times. I think you're the one that has the puzzle cover. The box cover that you have the vision of
With
what
the
it's
picture
supposed
on
to
it.
look like.
That you fight over.
And you just kind of share that information and let those puzzle pieces come together. So I appreciate that. I've also noticed that the recruitment process has continued, but rather than recruiting to gangs, they're getting recruited to the park district.
They are.
Which I love that, because we always like that succession planning. We've talked many times how a lot of the staff of the park district started in the programs, and then they loved it so much that now they're full-time staff. So we appreciate that effort. And that whole idea about literacy and illiteracy, I had no idea. Thank you for sharing that. I was just thinking, as you talk about the Kiwanis and the Rotary sponsoring with the financial, and I know, all the whole partnership. We have a community of partnerships that are making this happen. And the money that it takes to go forward with this, I thought, yeah, that's a lot of money, but what does it cost to house one prisoner for 1 year?
I have that number memorized. So I tell everybody, Safe Passage is the most selfish idea I've ever had in my life, because my original intention was just stop crime.
Yeah.
And that was to save my budget at the police department, because we were spending over $2 million to chase 200 dudes around Thousand Oaks, $2 million a year, doing completely ineffective, right? Cost $127,000 a year to keep a 16-year-old boy in our community. And we've been locking up lots of them to keep a 16-year-old boy in juvenile hall for 1 year. $127,000. Safe Passage is just around $1,500 a year per kid. It's simple numbers.
Yeah.
Simple numbers.
Yeah, it's just incredible. And then the thing that we don't mention, I think it's inherent in what you do, is while we're targeting kids, you're really making impact on families, and because you talked about the community, but it's the families, because we've seen them at the Christmas giveaways where it's not just one kid, it's a whole family.
Right.
You're blessing that whole family.
Sure.
You're blessing that community. You're blessing the entire community. And so I can see that replication of the impact. It's like, yeah, you might be, feeding that one lunch, but but it has this multiple. It's like the loaves and fishes getting,
Right.
expanded, It's just incredible how that works. And so I see, yeah, the others, some of these things that we'll never know what benefits will have come from this program. But we know that it's all good. And we appreciate your vision for that and how that continues on. And we'll continue to benefit this community. So thank you for your vision. Thank you for your energy and your continued energy. I'm glad you didn't retire your energy.
No, I made a promise on my last night that I was just going to cut it down to like 50 hours a week. And I've held that, right? But, I have to, as my parting words are this, is that I cannot stress enough, I could give you 2-hour presentation just on your staff. They are, all of your full-time staff work tirelessly every week on Safe Passage on these kids. They don't give up on them. And all of your volunteers, and it's everywhere from your maintenance and grounds people. We needing favors. We're bringing 100 kids over to here or there, and it couldn't happen without it. It just couldn't happen.
Oh, thank you. That's another testimony that we hear many times, that our staff is what makes the district. They are that frontline folks that really do make it. So thank you for that. And again, thank you for your continued support. And we look forward to continuing working with you. And thank you for everything.
Thanks.
Yeah. Hey. Okay, next is items from the public. Do we have any public waiting in the wings for this evening? Either online, I don't see anyone in the room here. Okay, I see Rochelle and Tim Giles waiting patiently. Thank you, Tim. Okay, approval of the agenda. Hearing no changes. Do I see a motion to approve? Mr. Lang, Director Lang, and Director Cusworth for a second. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next is our consent calendar. We have minutes and warrants. Any comments to corrections, Director Huffer?
Just one quick comment. I guess we must have an optimist in the group somewhere. I noticed that we're funding the 4th of July fireworks.
Indeed. We're doing it.
Any other comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar. Director Huffer?
I'll move approval of consent calendar items A and B.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Director Holt with a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I see no deferred matters. I see no items for discussion. So that brings us to our new items, and I'll turn that over to our general manager, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair Nichols, and I'm going to kick it right over to Birthday Boy.
All right.
Such a gift.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jim. And thanks everyone for the wonderful birthday singing from most of you. All right, so hey, first before we start, I want to say we've got Tim Giles is from the City of Thousand Oaks. He was the lead on the city side on this. He is on the Zoom call available for questions. And we also have the best looking man in the room, Brian McQueenie, back there. He's going to be speaking a little bit later on today, and he's also available for questions. So we have the major players in this. And also want to say that if you look at page 41 of your board packet, we had a page in there that says regarding board item 9A, due to the size of the document, et cetera, we had about over 300 pages, which we took out of this because, yes, it was, it's in the master document that we printed out. And I actually, because Tim was the lead on this, but I measured it, it was 2.5 inches of paper for the document. So it was over 300 pages we took out. So exhibits A through M, and just I'll quickly go through like what was not in your printed packet, but just again, quickly go. As I said, important stuff, but for the matters we're at hand here, they're not the main points here. So like exhibit A was a Rancho Potrero specific plan from a couple, 15 years ago or so. B was a legal description of Rancho Potrero. C was a city Casca lease agreement for Rancho Potrero. Exhibit D was the city ride-on agreement. Exhibit E was the legal description of the library. Exhibit F was a CRPD / library lease agree, or excuse me, CRPD city lease agreement for the library. G was terminating Exhibit C, terminating the city Casca lease agreement. H was the grant deed to Rancho Potrero to CRPD from Casca. I was the improvements at Rancho Potrero, transferring them from the city to the Park District. J was assigning the Exhibit D, ride-on, to CRPD as the operator. K was the grant deed of the library from CRPD to the city, the library property. And L was the construction costs, how they came up with the $2.265 million. And M is the termination of the lease agreement that was in Exhibit F between the CRPD and the city at the lease for the library property. Lots of stuff. And of course, the reason it was 300 pages, there were literally exhibits, two exhibits. So it was this big, huge thing. But we did make it available online. So if people just went to crpd.org, clicked on the item, you could read all. I think this one ended up to be 358 pages or something like that when it's all said and done. So just want to kind of get that out of the way. And then also want to tell you on page 116 of your document, we did and there's a supplemental in your board folder. It was just some insurance wording. The insurance requirements are the same, but it was Brian and I were talking just yesterday, 2 days ago. I don't remember what it was, and so his insurance broker wanted to change how it was worded, not the actual limits. So the limits stayed the same, but the wording changed. So that's again, there's a supplemental in your board folder talking about what that was. So, okay, so setting the stage straight for like we're getting this up to speed on where we are. And that, well, actually a couple more things. All the Casca related matters to this board item you're going to be considering tonight were discussed and approved on March 10th. And all the city related matters were discussed 2 nights ago on March 16th and approved. So that's again, setting the stage. We're the last ones here looking at it. So with all that said, took a very long time for the staff of the CRPD, the city and Casca to get through this, to start. We had lots of good conversations. And if you remember, we did form an ad hoc committee of Doug and George a while ago. And it was, we met multiple times, and it was kind of interesting too. What I really liked it was not just Director Lang and Chair Nichols, but we also had a couple of representatives from the city. And what we did, we made sure from our board, like we had one Park District member who was not a Casca board member, and we had one Park District member who was a Casca board member, and likewise on the city side. So that way we, in effect, had 2 CRPD representatives, 2 Casca representatives, and 2 city council representatives. So it was pretty unique on how we did that. A lot of work. Again, huge shout out to George and Doug for all the work you guys put in with that. That really helped us along with this and kind of guided us on what we needed to do, the direction we wanted to go. So I think it went really well. I said it took a while, but we got there. So let me just kind of go over what we're looking at tonight. In attachment 1, that's what starts on page 30. I'm just going to give you the highlights. Again, even taking out 300 pages, this is still 50 pages long. So I'm just going to give you some highlights here in the master agreement. And then one of the recommendation talks about, because there's still some blanks, and Tim and I still have to work out for like the finite, minute details, and we hope to, but again, in majority, this is what we're presenting you tonight. And then we're actually asking you to authorize the general manager to, if it's substantial, if it looks substantially like what we have in the major concepts, just in case if there's a little like a typo or something like that, we could correct that in the future. But the master agreement talks about, like at Rancho Potrero, here are some of the major points of the master agreement that are in attachment 1. The city and Casca will terminate their relationship out there. If you remember, the Casca owns the land and the city leases it from them. The Casca land that's there, the 20 acres, would be transferred to the Canaryrocan Park District. And then also with that, the city improvements that are owned by the city would also be transferred to the Canary-Recon Park District. So again, we would get the land and the improvements that are on there. The city would assign Ride-On to Canary-Recon Park District because they have a agreement with Ride-On right now they've had since August of 2019. So we would just, for like we would get, and with open arms, we would get Brian and Ride-On from what's there. Also, as far as like the money goes for some capital improvements, the city recognized that there's some deferred maintenance and some capital improvements that are needed. We would get nearly $1 million, $960,000, 480,000 of it. I think it's within 60 days of the execution of the agreement, and then another $480,000 a year from the execution of this agreement. And then plus we would also get, city council has over the past year or so, authorized up to about $450,000 worth of improvements for the city to spend. So it's really, we're getting the responsibility to finish these improvements, and we're getting the finance, the funding to complete these improvements. So the city's got about $120,000 in addition that we would get on top of that. Again, we got to do the final accounting on that. Also, what happens in this master agreement, the Park District gets permission to go onto Costco land to do area 1 of the specific plan. If you remember, the Rancho Potrero specific plan, if you're going past our little parking lot there and you go around to the right, it was the old Olympia Farm site. We actually did a grant with the Santa Monica Mountains for the construction of that. We got a $600,000 grant for that. So then, and likewise, like how we did the improvements when we did the parking lot and the bathroom there, very similar, you know, where, because Costco doesn't have the staff to do project management. So CRPD is taking that on, that responsibility. It can be Costco improvements and operated and maintained by Costco. That's not to say, I mean, obviously we use Costco land now for some things. CRPD staff can do programs out there. Because the area 1 is basically a grove of like walnut trees and some oak trees with a concrete slab and a little amphitheater area for like education and things like that. So we could use it, but Costco is the one who owns it and is responsible for it. In addition to that, what's in the master agreement is putting the CRPD owns the land that's underneath the Thousand Oaks Library there. We have an agreement where we lease the land to the city of Thousand Oaks for there. So we would give them the land for that. And then one of the actually very important things, one of these quote unquote details that we really need to figure out, because we're spending a lot of time on these other 300 pages, where we would get together in the near future to talk about restrictions and things that we need to do for this, so we can ensure there's a compatible use at Canary Creek North. Because if we give the library land to the city, for instance, we would have to cross their property in order to get to the park in the back. So, egress, issues, and we want to make sure the compatible uses that the city just doesn't, I know they wouldn't, Tim says they would, they just don't, they're not going to just, boom, sell it, and all of a sudden they're going to put 400 apartments there. So we're going to come up with some sort of restriction so there's some compatible uses there. Attachment 2 is the assigned, or excuse me, it's the lease that we have, the second action is to terminate the assigned lease we are getting Ride-On as part of the package from the city. We're getting their agreement. So they're assigning Ride-On to us. However, as much as we love Ride-On, as much as we love Brian, we want to go into a long-term agreement with Ride-On. So we get the assignment, and then we immediately tonight, we accept the assignment, and then we immediately tonight terminate that agreement so we can enter into a long-term lease. It's fun stuff, Chuck, don't you? So then we get a new lease with Ride-On. And so, that's the kind of like where that's today backwards, all the things that had to happen to get to this point. What we're really excited about is actually, is moving forward and what we can do with Ride On as our partner. As I mentioned before, Ride On they stepped in on a fairly quick notice over at Rancho Potrero back in August of 2019 when they took over from Circle K, and they've been doing a really, really good job out there, on a quote unquote temporary basis, which is now reaching a year and a half. They've been very successful in the operations. They were doing rental strings, boarding the horses, the camps, the programs, and even kind of interesting. As soon as Brian took over, I mean, I let him settle in for about an hour or two. And then, we approached him because we actually were asking with Circle K too earlier on, like, hey, talk to Rick Tanaka, the recreation supervisor at Dos Vientos. Let's get some programs out here. Let's help each other out. So of course, Brian was right on that. And we've had a lot of programs out there already, and they've been very successful. So even before we had this formal relationship, which we're seeking this formal relationship with Ride On, we've had an informal relationship at Rancho Potrero Equestrian Center. And as you well know too, I mean, Brian is not just another, and Ride On's just not another group. We've had a very successful long-term relationship with Ride On at Walnut Grove Equestrian Center. So that's been great. And again, like we said, we probably would be much more hesitant if this was an unknown operator. Brian's and Ride On is a fantastic organization, and we again look forward to working with him there. So some of the highlights of the agreement, he'll continue to do the boarding out there. We have the boarding rates, which Brian will set, and he'll do a market survey, from median to 33% above median. And what he'll provide a annual report to us about his activities and programs that he's doing out there. But I think the most important thing we're going to get out of this through the operations out there, there's going to be quite a few more public and recreational opportunities for the community, whether it's right, the folks in Dos Vientos like we talked about, or it's folks throughout the Canal Valley. I think this is going to be a really great opportunity, and Brian's got a great track record for doing that. We also talked about the capital improvements that we identified with the city. We're also identifying with Brian. It's $2.265 million. And the way that works, and it's confusing, but bear with me. I'll try to explain as best as I can. Let's put this way, Brian and I understand it. So I don't know if it's the most important thing, but we understand where we're going on to. It's kind of difficult. But so Brian and I had talked about, it's $2.265 million. Brian and I had reached, Ride On's actually going to contribute to that $2.265 million, $300,000. So that's why it works out to be, if you look at the clauses we have, is the CRPD is responsible for 86.75% of the funding of these capital improvements. And Ride On's responsible for 13.25% of these capital improvements. And where I came up with that is 300,000 divided by 2.265 is 13.25. So that's how the percentages came to be. I also put in there in Exhibit D, there is, again, a counting example, because it's not necessarily, like we always do, we always search for grants. So the big number is $2.265 million. If we get a grant, let's just say we get another grant from the state for something, and it's a $100,000 grant for something, that reduces the 2.265 because it's not being funded by us, from our pocket. It's not being funded from Ride On. Someone else we did the work, but someone else gave us the money to do that. So that 2.265 goes down to 2.165. And now it goes down, for the overall number goes down, and Ride On and the CRPD is still responsible for the same percentages. Now, for example, if Ride On does something, meaning they get a grant all on their own, they provide some funding, that they look forward to, like that, actual cash, or they get in services in kind. A group comes out and donates, $20,000 worth of concrete. That reduces Brian's, his $300,000. That reduces his liability because that's his contribution towards the overall portion of it. And then we came to agreement that any grants that Ride On would get from CRPD, like we do the matching grants and all that, that we would share, reduce each of our liabilities by 50%. So it's kind of like an equal thing. So I know, real confusing, but I tried my best. I think that's page, I should have, oh yeah, if you go to page 128, thank you. I have a tab there. And just from 128, rather than just even having it blank, what I did was I gave like as an example, and I tried to use every single example, some that are funded by just us, some are funded just by him, some are funded by both, some that are getting grants. And then I did a little, cheat sheets on the left. Oh, this is, line A, minus line B. This is line B, et cetera. Just kind of like an example. And this will be a running tally, running total as you go through. And that way, yes, I understand it and Brian understands it, but that way, if it's, if I take my birthday balloons and say I'm done with this in 14 months, yeah, I know. Hopefully the balloons last. That someone can understand the logic behind it. I try to make it a template so as easy as possible to figure it out. And then what we're doing, if there's money left over, say we're totally done, we want to finish everything by 2025. That's our goal. If we're totally done and Ride On, like we're owes us, or we fronted them the money for, let's say, $60,000. They were short on cash, or so they still have $60,000 of responsibility. We said that they could pay that over a 6-year term, interest-free, and 6 equal installments. So that way I don't have to say, hey, give me the money. You owe me 60 grand. No, you owe me 10 grand a year for the next 6 years. And so that way he can pay us back. But we'll figure it out as we go along. And then, like I said, every year, this will be part of our reporting, like, hey, where are we with the capital improvements? And more than just where were we physically with the capital improvements, but where are we fiscally with the capital improvements, and what's the accounting at the end of the year? So Ride On and CRPD are on the same page with all that. So let's see. And also, okay, so then some other, say, normal stuff. Ride On's responsible for all the repair, maintenance, utilities, operations, security, very similar to all our other partners. And then in addition to that, consistent with all our other partners that we have, Ride On is going to be the main point of contact with the complaints, grievances, and issues. And I do want to stress that, because whether I don't know from other, generally our partners are really good, but we do, whether it's myself or Jim or board members, we get that, hey, what are you going to do about this? He said, my garden plot at Las Flores Community Garden was 10 by 11 and not 10 by 10. And you're like, hey, you talk to the garden. That's not my deal. But you're the landlord. Nope, talk to the garden. That's it obviously is. I'm sure there's, I hope never, but there might be issues we might have to step in. But Brian Brian and Sarah are the first line, and so we're going to refer pretty much everybody back to them. So I hope we can hold that line. So, and just in conclusion, extremely excited. This was a really fun deal. Love working with Brian anyway, and now we get even a better opportunity to work with Brian on a larger scale with a bigger acreage, more money, more borders, more programming. Hey, I look at it as more fun. It's going to be a blast. We plan on rolling out this to the borders in the next few weeks, and patrons. We're going to do a site meeting out there on a Saturday where I'll be there like, hey, Tom Hare, talk to him, type thing, but kind of like give them a very general overview of what we're doing and how we're doing it and why we're doing it. Because and in general, I think though the borders are going to say no. Are you going to change my hay? No, I'll talk to Brian. That's not something I'm going to decide. So we're going to have that in a few weeks, and then also we just finalized an ad in the registration guide, the summer brochure. It looks really nice. It's just welcoming Ride On and the Rancho Potrero Community Equestrian Center to the CRPD family, along with Stagecoach and Toss and Corba and McCrae and everybody else there. So we're just ending with some beautiful pictures. So hopefully people see that and go, oh, that's really cool. And then they can do trail rides and programs and camps and education and all that sort of stuff. So hopefully And I'm guessing, and from what I've heard too, I mean, I do believe initially we're going to have more demand for recreation than we have supply, because it's just, we got to get there, which is a good thing, You know, I think, like Jim always says, yeah, that's pretty much a check off of every kid's, you know, life, that I rode a horse. And some kids do it and then they just absolutely fall in love with it, and then they do more about it. But I think it's something that's very relevant to the history of the Canal Valley and Thousand Oaks, and something we can preserve. And it's a beautiful place with a great operator. And again, extremely excited about this opportunity. And I'm available for questions, and we're going to have Brian speak first, or?
Well, just a couple
Sure.
of things before I do that, but has that, Mr. Giles, I just wanted to give you the opportunity while we've gone through this review, you know, if there's anything you wanted to supplement, anything that, we had a very extensive review and we've got the document here, but since you're with us, did you have anything you wanted to supplement or comment on at this stage of our discussion, or listening, I should say?
Well, I believe Mr. Hare covered everything that needed to be said. I just would, on behalf of the city council, say that we really appreciate the partnership that we have with CRPD, and this is an asset that the city has worked on for many years now, and to be able to take it to the next level by working with CRPD and the partnership that we have established there. We know that the alignment with your mission is going to be able to have really good things come out of the Equestrian Center, and so we're very pleased with this project.
Thank you. And again, thank you for your efforts in this as well. And then next, Director Lang, I know you and I both served on the ad hoc committee, but I just want to give you the opportunity, if you had anything from a committee perspective, if you wanted to add it at this point, or if you wanted to present that later in our discussion.
Well, I think all on the committee, and also, I don't know if Tom mentioned that the administrator for Costco was also involved with all the meetings. But I think those individuals from the city and the Park District and Costco, et cetera, all contributed to a certain degree as to what it was that we're looking for an entity like this within our community. We all know the history of equestrians, horses, et cetera, in the Canal Valley. And that has changed, obviously, but we all on this committee saw that there was something important there that we needed to continue to offer to our community. And other than that, I was just very pleased to have an opportunity to contribute like everybody else on the committee.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, this it is a kind of another step, just a confirmation that our district is a district of partnerships in all that we do. And this, again, whether it's a partnership with the city, with Costco, Ride On, one of our flagship partners, it's all there. You have something else to add, Director?
Yes, I'm just going to mention that my involvement goes back to when the MRCA, which I'm on the board, initially purchased this property from the George Huck estate. George Huck was a professional football player and so forth. And it was after his death that this property became available, and I was involved on the MRCA board, who actually did the purchase of the property initially before the city of Thousand Oaks got involved, and et cetera. So this has got a lot of extra meaning to me based on where it was out there in Rancho Potrero, and where it's going to be right in the middle of our community's experiences for the future.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Before I go to board questions, I did want to invite Brian McQueenie up. Tom here, did you have something specific, or was this like an open floor for him to share? Okay. All right, so Brian McQueenie, Director, I don't know what your official title is, but like to us, you are the face of Ride On, and rightfully so. So maybe to share your title and for our listening audience.
Sure.
And in your role, and anything else you have to share for this evening.
Sure. I'm Brian McQueenie. I'm the CEO of Ride On Therapeutic Horsemanship. I just want to say in May, in 6 or 8 weeks, Right On will celebrate 20 years at Walnut Grove.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
So that's in partnership with you, serving individuals with disabilities at the Walnut Grove Equestrian Center. So I think it's fitting. I think from the beginning, we have always talked in terms of providing generations of service. And so it's fitting that we're here tonight to begin another partnership benefiting the entire community that will provide service for many, many years to come. And by the way, nothing will change at Walnut Grove. We will continue to provide our world-class service at Walnut Grove as we have for the last 20 years there. So that's important to note. I need to say thank you. I need to say thank you to the city, to COSCA, to the Park District. Horses are support for horses is not a given. It takes leadership, it takes vision, it takes creativity, it takes hard work to get us, and it's your vision that has gotten us to this point. And I want to thank you for that. Right On has always felt that there's so much more potential out at Rancho Potrero. We're excited to begin another chapter with our amazing staff of providing amazing service to the community. Whether that's scouts and safe passage, whether it's clinics and camps, whether it's school programs and service projects, access to open space, affordable horse ownership, education for those new to horses and those who have spent a lifetime with horses. All of those things are part of what we see as our mandate and our mission out at Rancho Potrero. And that's why we're here. Our commitment to you is to leverage your investment and your support to make the entire community a better place. Tonight's agenda has a lot of moving parts, as Tom has just gone through, involving the library, Olympia Farms, Rancho Potrero, with roots going back decades, as George suggested. From where I sit, the staff has done an amazing job crafting a master agreement that lets COSCA concentrate its focus on open space, the city focus on delivering public services, the Park District focusing on recreation, and it allows Right On to provide great programs to the community going forward. I think the word you guys have all said before is partnerships. This is, I think, an amazing opportunity. It's an exciting one. And actually, tomorrow afternoon, we have a CRPD group of staffers coming out for a team building experience with our horses at the rent string. So that's just, you know, we've had scouts out before, and obviously we are COVID limited right now. And so we're kind of slowly building our program, but we're building for that day when we can all open up and begin to deliver services as we have been in the past. I'm happy to answer any questions you have, and thank you again very much to all of you.
Thank you, Brian. Director Huffer, any questions for Brian McQueenie?
Not specifically for Brian, no.
Okay. Director Holt, anything for Brian? Anything for Brian? Director Cuthbert?
Well, I have a few things. I was really impressed with his presentation, and have been really impressed with Brian and his facilities. In fact, I commend you for wanting to take out more. I've been to the Valley one and to Walnut Grove, and it seems like running those two is just enough of a full-time job for you. And so now taking on a whole nother center, you're a very organized and committed man. So thank you. In thinking of the safe passages, I was wondering, how many active equestrian centers are there around the Los Angeles area? Are there any others besides what your therapeutic ones or things that are open to the public that you know of?
Well, certainly on the therapeutic side, there are many centers. Most of them tend to be quite small. So Right On is unusual with our size and our professionalism. We teach, we train, we certify other people who want to get involved. So while there are many other centers, there are only a few in the country that are the size that Right On is. as far as other equestrian centers, there's a large number of equestrian centers. Most of them tend to be more higher end facilities with private trainers and charging a good bit more money. That would be pretty typical. But there are other kind of entry level stables around. They're getting fewer and further between because the economics are so challenging.
Yeah, I was thinking that it might be difficult to have a public facility such as we have because horses are very expensive to maintain. And that made me wonder, do we have horses for the public to use, or is that something that we would have to buy?
No, we have, Right On has horses. We have our own school horses, and we have trail ride horses that we've acquired particularly for that part of the mission.
Oh, okay, so those would be open to the public?
Yes.
So
Yes.
there would be things such as potentially sunset rides and
There-
lessons and things
There
of
are
that
now,
sort.
yes, we're doing that
Because
now.
I know that when you were talking earlier about it's every kid's dream to ride on a horse, we were going on vacation and I said to the kids, what do you want to do? And they said, we want to go horseback riding. And we did not, we were up in Sacramento, we didn't find a facility. I'm sure there's one up there, but it didn't fit in. And I thought, well, my son's 32 years old and my daughter's 28, they're going to go horseback riding someday if this opens up, because that's not always an easy thing to find. So I think that's, a great thing to do. Also, when Tom was talking about having you come to all of our community partners, we have so many community partners, and I think a lot of our community partners are just what makes our community, and that CRPD is a part of that. And as I've been here for the last 2 years, I've been just amazed at how many community partners we've had. And I had talked to Rochelle at one time, well, can we get more on the website with our community partners, or can we get more in our program, bulletin with community partners? But there's no room in the program, and there's no room in the program guide. There's no room on the website. So just something to throw out there, Rochelle, maybe we need to get another website just dedicated to the community partners, like have the CRPD community partners website, because I would love to see you getting more visibility on a website that was powered by CRPD. I'm just throwing that out there. Just one other question for Tom. Is the library trading the money, the library and the Rancho Potrero, is that just a straight trade of land?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's what I was thinking, because you didn't mention anything about anybody giving more money. So
No,
that's
it's
just
just,
what we
yeah,
did.
we had an evaluation of the appraisal of it, and yeah, it's relatively similar. So,
Okay,
yeah.
so that makes it a little easier.
And just to Brett, we do have links on our website to all our partners, so
Well, you do.
Yeah, I
You
know.
do.
Yeah.
And I could go into that, but it's kind of hard to find them.
Yeah, well,
And I guess I'm just,
I know, it's tough, but our
Yeah.
website is extremely robust, so it's kind of hard to fit everything in.
yeah, that's why I think we need a whole nother website
Okay.
just for them.
Sure.
So we'll see if that would ever happen, but we have so much at CRPD. That's what I was saying. So many wonderful things going on in CRPD that it's hard to fit everything on our website. And I know I've talked to Rochelle and I think I was talking to Kathy about that too, but, and I understand the limitations, but these are such good things. We have such good things here. Okay, I'll stop rambling. All right, I'm done.
Director
Bye.
Lang, do you have something specific for Mr. McQueenie? And then we'll let him have a seat after that.
Yes. Tom mentioned if there's any issues, problems, et cetera, we direct all of them to Brian and Right On. During your period of time from the fall of 2019 until now with this group out at Dos Vientos, does there appear to be any particular complaint or issue that you've had to deal with?
Well, here's what I said to my board yesterday. I said, we've got 130 horses out there, so something is always going to be broken. And I've got 100 boarders out there, so somebody's always going to be complaining. Anytime you put 100 horse people together, you have 100 different ideas of how a facility should be run. And I can't run it 100 different ways. I have to run it one way. That's the bad news. The good news is we've got a team that does a very good job at running things so that the vast majority of boarders are happy. I will say that Rancho Potrero has a history. It had a kind of a very challenging, extremely challenging transition from the last operator to this one. Before the last operator left, it was not the most healthy of environments on many different levels. And I think that had a kind of a hangover effect. And there's been a process of building trust with the boarders and giving them confidence that they can be heard fairly, that we will respond appropriately and quickly. And that's something that takes time. That's a process. That's not a snap your fingers. It's not because I come in and Right On's name is, has so much weight that goes with it. It's building trust, and that does take time. And we're in that process, and that's part of it. And going forward, I think this transition from the city to the park district as owners is going to be helpful along those lines too. Because there's nothing, that kind of gives us the opportunity to reset and recreate a healthy dynamic. And that's what I'm looking forward to.
Thank you.
Sure. And I just want to say one other thing to
go
your
ahead.
partnership, is that I have a strong belief now that the district can do things that nonprofits can't do, and the nonprofits can do things that the district can't do. And that's why these are such win-win situations, and they make so much sense. So not only with Right On, but your other partners and other potential partners that come to you with ideas and possibilities, be open to that. And I know you are, and that's unlike and that's unusual, and that's why I always express such appreciation for you, because the decisions you've made over the last 20 years with Right On it's not a given. Those were not easy decisions to make. And it takes a unique culture and a unique vision for what your community should look like that gets us to this point where we can then take advantage of these opportunities and realize them, because otherwise they will not happen. So thank you very much. And I'm happy to always answer any questions and see you out at the ranch.
Thank you, Brian. Yep. Feel free to have a seat. We may have a few more questions for you before we could, but again, thank you for being here this evening. Okay, so is there some specific questions for staff or anybody else? Yes, Director Hupper, go right ahead.
So I want to get this straight.
Okay.
The city is assigning their agreement with Right On to us,
Correct.
and we're agreeing to take that assignment.
Correct.
And then we are canceling the assignment,
Correct.
and we're signing a new agreement with Right On.
Very good. Yes.
Yeah.
ABC.
And I made the mistake, for whatever reason, I was having trouble sleeping last night, so I went through all 300 pages online.
Oh.
And I found four copies
Yes.
of the entire historical documentation of the library leases.
Yes.
One thing interesting was some of the signatures on those documents.
Right.
The documents themselves were boring
Right,
as all
yeah,
get out.
because you're right, all those things were exhibits to exhibits and
Yeah,
referencing.
yeah,
And
and then
standing alone, they were great, but throw them all together, they have to, that's why it's 300 pages.
Right, and then the same thing with the Equestrian Center and its
Yes.
long history, and
Yeah.
it was an exhibit of an exhibit of
Yep.
an exhibit, so that put me back to sleep really quickly. I'm trying to understand an attachment 1 with the agreement between Casca, the city, and CRPD on, page 34, item D. Now, is this the agreement that the city is basically giving to us, saying that we will undertake the operation and maintenance for a minimum of 30 years?
Well, it's over and above, the assignment is they're assigning the operator to us, but as a promise in the master agreement is that we will operate this as an equestrian center for the next 30 years.
Okay, so we're going to operate it for 30 years, but we're signing a 40-year agreement with Right On.
Yeah.
What happens during that 10-year period?
Well, the city doesn't care anymore because we're past their 30 years.
But
Yeah.
So this is an ongoing agreement. The city isn't abandoning their current agreement with Right On.
No. The city we are making a promise to the city that this will stay in equestrian. It's just a promise. because it's that we weren't going to take this in 3 years from now, and bad things happen. Right on defaults, they leave, the horses are gone or whatever. But we do have the ability to, if we mutually agree, like let's just say, like I said, I'm totally exaggerating. In like I said, 3-5 years, there are absolutely no more horses and no more interest for horses in the community. So we could approach the city and say, hey, I know I promised you that this would be an equestrian center for the next 30 years. And it's a promise to them. That's we're agreeing to. We just can't unilaterally say, oh, we're gonna turn it into soccer fields. And they're like, no, you said it. I know you. That's why I went to you with that one. We can't just unilaterally say, you know what? Hey, forget the horses, Brian. You're gone. We're terminating you. You go somewhere else. We're going to build soccer fields there, because the city can say, no, you promised us that it's kind of like the city's promise to the community that they're not abandoning the equestrian aspect of the community, that they're handing it off, but they're making us promise that it'll be an equestrian center for the next 30 years unless something interesting happens. Like I said, there's absolutely no more horses and whatever. So we could go to the city and say, hey, there's only 2 horses out there now. He was talking about 100. There's only 2. And Brian says, hey, I want to incorporate those 2 horses and move them over to Walnut Grove, and I'm done. This is not making any more sense for me. And so then we can go to the city and say, I know we promised, but the demand's not there anymore.
Okay, I guess I'm sure this makes a lot of sense to you folks, and maybe the lawyers that are involved. As I'm having a little difficult time understanding why one agreement is for 30 years and one is for 40 years.
And so there's just, and honestly, for like I want to say mistake, meaning it's the city made us promise for 30, and our agreement with Ride On at Walnut Grove was 40. So when Brian, and that was probably one of the first questions I asked Brian, to go, how long do you want? Yeah, let's make it like Walnut Grove, 40. I mean, really, there's no rhyme or reason to 30 or 40. And I don't think there's nothing bad about having a 30 and 40. I mean, it's just nothing, because it's just one's a promise to the city and the other one is our agreement with Ride On.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, it's way down the line when most of us won't be around to care anyway, but
Yeah.
it seems a little strange.
Right. I understand where you're coming from. I said, I want to say thin air, but just like, 40 sounds cool.
Yeah. All right. And you mentioned Walnut Grove, and I believe Brian said we're, 25 years?
20 years.
20 years.
Yeah.
With a 40-year lease. Would there be any advantages or disadvantages to coordinating the 2 leases, or is it better to have?
I believe, and I'll speak for Brian on this one too. I think they are, we intentionally, like when we actually put that verbiage in there in the agreement, that this, for like where it has nothing to do, our Rancho Petro Community Equestrian Center lease with Ride On has nothing to do with their operations at Walnut Grove. We intentionally separated it that way. So that way, if something happens, it doesn't affect the other one. So yeah, you could link them up time-wise, but at the same time, to us, it makes no sense in that it's more administrative than anything that, yeah, and I agree. Sometimes we do that where, I mean, just like for fiscal years, I try to make things end on the fiscal year so I remember to do it rather than having agreements all over the place. And one's on September 1st and one's on March 1st. And yeah, so it's just that. It's really, we're intentionally trying to separate it, but, we could make it, less years, but we want to make a long-term commitment to, and that actually helps. And you think with what's left, what he has on Walnut Grove, what helps, again, speaking for Ride On, what helps him do fundraising for future capital improvements is that he has a long-term agreement with someone like us that if it was a 5-year agreement, no one's going to donate $100,000 towards a capital project that he wants to do when it might be torn down in 5 years. So the 40 years is what really helps the fundraising efforts and helps his commitment and our commitment to the community of that it's going to be a long-term relationship.
Okay. You mentioned the capital improvements that you and Brian have talked about, and you had the chart with priority 1, priority 2,
Yeah.
3, and 4.
So page
Total-
one, page
yeah,
126, yeah.
Yeah, 126, totaling 2.265 million. Is that dollar figure part of the agreement that we're voting on tonight? Or is this, because in the, it's on page 107 of the package, under capital improvements, says the district and Right-On shall make best efforts to complete the
Right.
capital improvements.
Right. So
So
no,
we're
what-
not authorizing 2 point whatever
No,
million
no,
tonight.
we are not. What'll be part of, like, we're just in the rough stages of the 10-year plan.
Right, and you give us an update on that
Right.
every year.
So what we're gonna do with it, like, right now, we have a flat for the placeholder. It just says, like, year 1, Rancho Petro, for $500,000, Rancho Petro, miscellaneous improvements, year 2, 5, just kind of like more placeholder stuff. What we're doing tonight is approving a conceptual capital improvement plan that we're gonna make best efforts between the Park District and Right-On to complete. Because especially too, well, what if we get, and we're actually gonna, Brian and I and Andrew are gonna meet on this next week, and come up, refine and fine tune and all that, because just like this is a 5-year plan, or excuse me, this is a 4-year plan. That we get into year 3 and something that we said we wanted to do in year 4, oh, I don't need that anymore. But we still got some money or this or that, we'll tweak it as we go along. And then again, maybe we spend some more money in year 1 than more than we spend in year 2 because of the timing and all that. So this is just a conceptual idea of what needs to be done and an estimate of how much it's going to cost. So us as or you as the board can take a look at, hey, in general, we Brian and Right-On and the CRPD are agreeing that there's a little over $2.25 million improvements that need to be done. Here's a general description about what needs to be done, and here's the phased approach, what we believe, how we're going to execute it. And then when we actually get into this is what we're doing and how much it's going to cost, it'll be part of the CIP plan.
Okay, so it'd be going through the same process that we do with all of the other
Yeah, no matter
districts.
what project it is, whether it's, building a new park at Canal Creek Southwest or putting a new roof at Orchard Center, same thing.
Okay. And I guess it must be inflation. I know some of the very old agreements, the leases between the city and Park District or so on were $1 a year or something like that. And with inflation, it's now $40 a year for.
We copied it from the Walnut Grove one. I don't know where that came on. So that's just $40 a year. Brian must like 40. So he's 40 years old. So.
Is that right, Brian? Oh, okay. All right. Okay. That's all the questions I have. Thank you. I'm not concerned about the library land. As you said, it's just a land swap, and you will work with the city to make sure that we can get back to the rest of Canal Creek North. So
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Holt, did you have some questions for staff?
Not really, although I am curious, it doesn't really affect this package much, but what is the city going to do with the extra land? I mean, they have their parking lot. We have access from the parking lot into our park. I mean, would there be any changes?
Well, yeah, I can't speak. I mean, Tim might give more specifics, but where I think and Tim, correct me if I'm wrong. It's mostly it's giving of land. It's the city. The city had $3 or $4 million worth of improvements, Tim, that they performed, a few years back. So they're actually giving us improved property, and then in exchange, right? Yeah. So it's kind of like we're swapping. They built a house on this land, and we own the land that they built the library on. Yeah. Let's swap it. Yeah.
Mr. Giles, did you have anything else to add to that? I see your mic, you're unmuted.
Well, I was just, if all the question has been answered, probably don't need to add anything to that, but I think along the lines of what Tom was saying is that at the end of the lease that we had with the library property, we would be walking away from a substantial investment of the library property. This allows us to have assurance for the community that there's not going to be an end term at which the city has to walk away from those improvements. We would control them because we would control the land. There's not a lease term that would run out.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, thank you. Anything else, Director Holt?
No, that's it.
Director Cusworth, questions for staff? No? Okay. Director Lang?
Nope.
Very good, okay. I just wanted to share a few comments, having gone through this process, and maybe just to restate a couple of things for clarification on my behalf. I did have a question to start with, though. Will this be facility run like a community center as far as how we do our internal tracking of things? Will it be like a community center? Is this more programming thing? How does it work?
This is more very consistent with our other partnerships that we have. So whether it's Stagecoach or Canadian Historical Society at Stagecoach, Ride On at Walnut Grove, we're gonna work with Ride On for programming. That's when I was saying when Dos Vientos is involved, it's just hey, we've got some people up here who could be interested, and we can advertise for you and have programs out here. And so it's very much like all of our other partnerships that we have. Very,
Okay.
very similar.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you. As going through, as just was reflecting, as we were going through this process through the ad hoc committee and gathering all this information and staff sharing it with us, I mean, first of all, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, what are we getting into? But as we started to unfold all the details and, the concepts behind it, both looking from the city perspective and the Park District perspective, as well as the COSCA perspective, it became very apparent to me that we were really bringing things into alignment, as was mentioned. I think even Brian McQueen mentioned it, where the Park District gets to focus on the programming and recreation, and the city gets to focus on public services, being library and such. And COSCA kind of gets out of the horse arena ownership and says, yeah, that's not really what we do. We do open space, or just finding, well, how many of these pieces need to be kind of refocused and kind of put into different categories to let the agencies do what they do best. And as that became more of a focus, and thanks to staff and the attorneys and everybody else who kind of put all this together, it really started to come to focus, and I appreciate that. I think it also, as was mentioned earlier, with the intention of the Rancho Potrero specific plan, it kind of plays that whole thing out even further from a community-wide perspective as well. And as Mr. Hare mentioned, we did have an assessment or appraisal, I guess, of the properties to make sure there's some equity as far as the library property going from the Park District to the city, and then also the horse property going from the COSC in the city to the Park District, and it all seemed to fit. And as we were contemplating that was just like, well, what else are we going to do with the library property? I mean, we're not going to pull that piece of land out from underneath the library and leave the community without a library. It's just like, no, it's going to be a library. That's what the community expects, and that's the intention. And we've been doing it for 40 some years. Let's just kind of verify that, yeah, that's going to be a library. The community needs that and one wants it. So that's what we're going to be doing. And likewise with the equestrian facilities, just like, yeah, goes back to the Two Winds equestrian facility, back in the 1970s. People look forward to having that equestrian facility. So we just kind of continue to reinforce that. I think what, in my mind, something that's unique about this partnership as we look through this and kind of verifying this and solidifying it, everything is a known commodity. We've worked with all these agencies for years and nothing unusual. And with Ride On, we have a 20-year relationship with them. So it's not like, oh, let's go out and find an operator and see if this is going to work. I mean, we've got everything right in front of us. It's like, yeah, let's just kind of keep doing what we've been doing. It just only makes sense. So there's really nothing kind of questionable out there. It just always seemed to make sense for me. And then I just was looking as I was pouring through the documents, and Director Huffer even dove a little deeper than I was willing to do. But as I was going through the master agreement, I guess I was reflecting on all of our discussions and all these different moving parts, kind of seeing how they were all fitting together. And just the vision and time spent by, Mr. Giles, Tim Giles, and the city staff, Brian Stark and Costco staff, Jim and Tom with our Park District staff, all these different pieces that had to fall into place with the multiple agreements with all these different parties. I just was amazed that, I couldn't even find a typo of value to go through all this. It was that detailed where things have gone through that much time and effort. So I appreciate the staff's effort for that. And I too am looking forward to the programming. It's already underway. Brian mentioned how some of these things are already, they've already got rental strings. It's already kind of moving that direction. We'll continue to go that way. And I'm really looking forward to it. So I just wanted to, thank staff publicly, Jim and your team and Tom and Brian for your partnership, Tim, for the city staff, Brian with Costco. There's a lot of time and effort put into this, and I think it does really bring things into focus and it really defines what our community is all about. And to me, the ultimate winners from this, benefactors, are the residents of our community. They're the ones that this is a win-win for the agencies, but even more so for our community and the residents, that they end up truly being the benefactor of all this. So I appreciate that. So I'm looking forward to that. My final question is there going to be like any type of a ribbon cutting for this, or is this just kind of move into the sunset out there off as you look out over the site?
Well, Brian and I, we've talked a little bit about that because it's the interesting, right? Where is the ribbon cutting? Because we're going to have some, significant improvements over the next few years. I'm sure we'll find something in the very near future to celebrate more than like, hi, we're here, because then people are like, well, what do you do different? Well, nothing, we're here now. So I'm sure we'll come up with an appropriate time to celebrate and get Nellie's kids on a horse ride, and they'll even do a show for us, I'm sure.
We get to see you on a horse?
Sure. Sure.
Director Lang?
Wait,
Yes.
who was laughing? Was that you, Brian? Thanks.
To piggyback on your comment, and it's been infiltrated to a number of these discussion items, is the programming. And we can see in Rochelle's recreation report tonight, the offering of a Wranglers Club or event and so forth. It's refreshing to see this element having an opportunity, those who, have the dreams, as Director Cussworth talked about her children, those that had the dreams about being involved with a horse, couldn't afford no ownership, but here's a CRPD programming offering of a Wranglers Club and so forth. So I just see this taking off and becoming more and more popular.
Absolutely. I would agree with that as well. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so if there's no other discussion, I see before us we have a half a page recommendation here that has to do with a master agreement, leases terminating, leases being assumed, authorization to the general manager. Do I have a motion for someone who would like to do that? Yes, Director Holt.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to, for all the recommendations that are listed here. Recommendation 1, both all A, B, and C. Recommendation, it's the mask, guys. 2, 3, and 4 as well, all in one motion. So
Okay.
I move that we vote accepting all these recommendations.
Thank you, Director Holt. I just want to clarify that that includes the revised supplement that we had here in that one in insurance paragraph 22.
It was in the other folder. One was on your desk.
Just say yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I'm not sure what he said.
And General Manager, will that be clear as far as the intent of the board?
Absolutely
Okay.
clear.
Okay. Do I have a second on that motion, Director Huffer?
I would like to second that, just as long as we make sure that all this is done in the correct order. We'd hate to be getting rid of something before we have something to replace it. So yes, I will second that.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Hearing no objections, do I have a I'd like to hear a vote of approval. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries 5-0. Thank you for staff. Thank you, Tim Giles for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Brian.
And for Brian for being with us. We look forward to working with all of you in the future.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you out there soon.
All right, thank you. Okay, we'll continue on with our agenda. We have item 10, reports and announcements in our packet. We have-
9B.
I'm sorry.
D.
I'm not done.
Oh, gosh, there's a whole paragraph there. I walked right past it. Okay, I'm sorry. We got 9B, multi-agency agreement for weed abatement services. Thank you. Okay.
Where am I now?
General Manager, does this go right to Tom here?
Yeah, this is, this whole night, so this next item is on page 135. And really, I asked Tom what he would most want for his birthday. And he said, I'd like to be the staff person responsible for 3 action items on the single agenda.
And small ones too.
Yes. It really, meaty stuff all on the same night. So,
Okay,
Mr. Hare.
very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim, Chair Nichols, members of the board. Yeah, this is for our weed abatement services. We've done this a couple times in the past. In 2012, between us and Casca and the city, we got together and said, hey, what a great idea if we put out the golden ticket out there and put all of our weed abatement together and under one contract for cost efficiency and contract effectiveness. So we did it in 2012, it worked really well. We did it again in 2017, and the contract is up for the season is over for this upcoming season. So we went out again. We've got 11 organizations that submitted proposals. We had an evaluation committee of representatives from Casca, the city, and CRPD. We interviewed the top 2 proposers, and we decided on SoCal Brush, that they have the experience, competence, and training and credentials to do the job. It's a 5-year term. It's combined. It's a little for the 5 years. It's a little over $1 million between the agencies. $1.06 million. $230,000 of that is Casca, and about $283,000 of that is CRPD, and the balance is Thousand Oaks. We also put a little bit of contingency in there for extra services because over the years, there's always amounts of regrowth. They'll go out and cut, then we get a late rain, and we've got to do the remow out there for what needs to be done. And sometimes fire department, they come and do an inspection. They say, oh, can you also do this, or push out a little further here, or take care of that tree. So that's why we have the contingency of like $177,000 over the 5 years. So city staff made this same recommendation to city council on March 16th, and it was approved unanimously. And as the maintenance and operations for Casca, we actually approved this for Casca tonight. So even though Brian Stark will sign on, I think Brian Stark's on here signing on behalf of Casca, but we're taking this for Casca and for CRPD to enter into this agreement. With that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Director Lang.
Yes, Tom, looking at the bid sheet, the second from the bottom, Venco, were they the previous vendor?
Yes, they've done the last 9 years.
Okay, and there's a $200,000 differential.
Yeah, we interviewed them and SoCal Brush, but just to see if there was anything that could make up the difference, anything difference, but no, we were very comfortable with SoCal Brush, and they're it's about 20% less.
Okay, and who have they done brushing?
They've done work for LA County, Las Virgenes School District, and LA County is their biggest one that they've done. They did I think it's I'm trying to remember how many, 2 million square feet. Ours is about 12 million square feet. We actually interviewed them last time too, 4 years ago. What the company, it's a couple of ex-wildland firefighters, and we interviewed them because they seemed really intriguing, but they were, for lack of a word, just starting, and we told them, hey, go get some experience, get some bigger contracts, learn how to do it, and we'll see you next year. And I honestly totally forgot about it until they mentioned, hey, we were the ones 4 years ago, and this is what we've done in the past to refine our processes. They did, I said they've done some big jobs, and I said, check the references, and they said, yeah, they're good guys, and they are located in Newbury Park, both of them. So that was kind of interesting. I thought, I totally missed that in the, because you're like looking at 11 proposals. And one of the things when we were doing the Zoom interview, the guy goes, well, yeah, if I screw this up, that guy next to me, my neighbor is going to say, he's going to get, he goes, no, this is more than just we're a company doing it. This is our neighborhood. And we have to do this for our community and for our neighbors and for Canary Recon Park District, Casca, and the city.
Thank you.
Yes, Director Cusworth.
So I'm just wondering, when we're saying weed abatement, is this just for open space where there's a lot of weeds, or is this going down into like our play fields and things?
No, just now some of it, like we do perform weed abatement at like say Kenyatta Park. Just some of those areas too where we have, I don't want to call it open space, but undeveloped parkland like at Lynn Oaks. And Kenyatta come to mind, where we have, those, I'm talking Kenyatta up on the hill.
Yeah,
there.
I know where it is.
Yeah, so, but in general, it's a lot of it is open space, and some of it is owned by the city of Thousand Oaks, some of it is owned by, the majority of it owns by Casca, and some of it's owned by Canary Recon Park District. But the city and CRPD do have other than quote unquote open space that are being taken care of. So it's a, I mean, a lot of it's online now, we deal with it, but when we started this, we literally had I think several volumes. I think we each had our own volume of maps showing, it says, like if you look at if you look back in, let me look at the page here. Like if page 155, where it starts like the schedule of fees. So like the first 61 parcels are Casca owned, and then parcel 63 through 138 are CRPD owned. So so then we have maps, GIS telling you what they need to do in each one, and then each agency has a representative, and they meet with the contractor, and they don't just do it. They don't go do us. City, Casca, like that. They do most geographic. They're going to hit this area. The crews hit this hard. They meet with each representative before and after, and like say, hey, this looks good. We have Kari Stav, who's our Ranger 2. She represents us, and then she says, yeah, looks good. And then we get the fire department in there to inspect each parcel.
So are they mainly going for invasive plants, or is this for fire management, or what exactly?
Fire management, yes. Yeah,
It's for fire.
yeah, it's the 100-foot clearance that they do that's required by the Ventura County Fire Department.
Okay, so they're probably just physically going out there and taking it out?
Yes.
Okay.
And then there's some, in general, it's just the clearance, but when they encounter trees, there's Ventura County has a fire, has a, I don't want to say ordinance or a guideline, probably like how much a tree has to be limbed up, because that also can, I don't say help, contribute, thank you, I was saying cause, it contribute to fire, because if the tree is not limbed up properly. So we just follow all the guidelines from Ventura County Fire Department.
Okay, thank you very much.
Director Holt, did you have any questions? Director Huffer?
Yeah, just a couple. We're accustomed to seeing bid documents with wide variations in numbers, but I mean, this 6.5 versus less than $1 million, I mean, that's pretty dramatic. You mentioned that a couple of the contracts that this company already has, are any of those comparable size to what we're doing here?
Yeah, I mean, from a standpoint of because we're about, I think it's total, we're about 10 million, 11 million square feet total. And so answer no, meaning they haven't, actually we are the standard, we are the gold ticket for in Southern California, as far as there is no other contract as big as ours. But they, like I said, they have done several million square feet for LA County, because what LA County and LA City do, they just don't say, hey, you can have all of it. They give a region, region 1 goes to this company and region 2 goes to that company. You can win several regions, but they try to split it up because it's such a massive job. But they have done several million square feet, which took them, I'm trying to remember, it was like they had like 20 or 30 days to finish that job. So as far as it was a similar in scope but just times 5. You know what I mean? Like that. Yeah. Hey, they need to do that. Do it again. Do it again. And we asked them all the questions about, do you have the staffing? If I were to say go right now, because that's a good question. Because they don't have. I think this one they're looking at a crew of 14. They don't have staff 14 guys sitting waiting for work. They said no. If you told us today to go. After some meetings with you and all that, we have to do some stuff on our end, but we could be out there in like a week. So that was very reassuring.
Okay. And then I assume that, maybe I shouldn't assume, but I don't know if it would be the city attorney or the COSCA secretary or who it is, but there's no legal problem with Chair Skay being the signer of this contract or this contract?
Yeah, no, there's not
Okay.
a concern. No.
Just want to make sure. That's all.
Is that it? Okay, thank you. Mr. Hare, I have a couple of questions
Sure.
regarding the scope of work. I noticed that as far as the methods, there's only 2 available, either removal by hand or use of a flail mower. Is that because over time, since obviously you have every single parcel identified and these have been done for years, that it has been determined that either one of those 2 options is the most appropriate
Can
and
you tell
effective?
me where you are, sir?
The scope of work on page 152, Exhibit A. I thought you had all 300 pages memorized. I'm sorry.
Sure.
It's the second paragraph. Service providers, weed abatement methods, either removal by hand and or by use of a flail mower.
I might even be able to respond to that. So there's alternative methods to removals, right? You can do, a glyphosate, a herbicide, and you could also, burn. There's people that clear by burning, and there's also disking. And all 3 of those we've determined aren't appropriate really in the areas that they're doing this kind of work in. So it really comes down to pretty much handwork and flail mowers.
Mechanical,
Mechanical, yep.
is and a lot like Jim was saying, because I apologize. I just had to read a little bit more about it, but because we don't want to use chemicals or burning. It was just in a sense, it's just in general by mechanical means, not by, like I said, burning or chemicals.
Okay, yeah, I see there it says disking and chemicals are not permitted. I guess my question kind of came with, well, what about if there's some other alternative and they say, gosh, we'd really like to do this type. If they approach you and explain why
sure.
it's better, so that's
yeah,
always
sure.
an option if
Yes,
they make it, okay.
yeah, definitely. If it's something that if he's got a better way to skin the cat, we're more than willing to listen.
And in all these areas since we had a little presentation tonight with goats, have goats been considered as an option for some of these areas?
He is any goat service provider is more than welcome to provide us a proposal on how he would accomplish to get rid of 11 million square feet of weed abatement.
Well, I was thinking there might be a handful of parcels, for example, that might be more amenable to that than something else. If there's like a subcontractor, for example.
Yeah, true, but that's up to that'd be up to the main contractor, right? If he wants a subcontract with goats and because I don't want to say, we say this is how it has to be done, but we just wanted to get it done and in compliance with the Ventura County Fire regulations.
Okay. Well, that's why I was questioning. It says that you only have those 2 options. It's like if you have goats, then you can't even bid because, it has to either be by hand or flail mower. And
I do know we had one goat vendor basically express interest, but basically that essentially that the job is so fast. So we wanted to be efficient by consolidating all the acreage into one contract. So you get sort of that bulk purchasing power.
Sure.
But a goat removal method, you just can't get enough goats to do this kind of work. So they're not necessarily going to be successful in a bid this size. They're just, they can't eat that fast. So
Well, most of the times it's more of a year-round approach.
Yeah,
They're just
yeah.
going from place to place to place.
And so, I know Brian Stark is, the Costco manager and kind of has, his staff between him and Anna have a bit more expertise on the environmental, issues related to goats and the appropriate. And I know the cities use them in specific applications with the specific intent to kind of see the performance. And so that's something, I guess, that we would look at. But in terms of this particular contract for the vast majority of, we have a pretty short window to go from when it's rainy and growing to when it's a threat that needs to be eliminated, that 100 feet. So speed and quickness is kind of a real high priority. So I know the goats are a fan favorite out there.
Oh, yeah.
Let's
Oh,
just
yeah.
not kid ourselves. Who doesn't love looking at the
Sure.
goats on the hillside? But
Yeah.
there are some environmental considerations, and then just the efficiency and speed, and it ultimately boils down to cost. The goats
Okay.
tend to cost a little more. But
All right, just curious. And then the third sentence in that paragraph says abatement shall include raking and removal and disposal. Is there any sites where they actually will use a chipper and just mulch and spread it back onto the site, or is that not permitted?
I don't believe so. I don't recall that any places where they allow that, because it's what the VCFD wants is complete removal of, so that's a big contention with us, because we've had, even, it's not on purpose, but in the past, hey, well, we're just the cutting guys, and then the removal guys are coming later on, and then because I don't think, because we didn't really expressly say that in the first time we did this. And then it was, a week or two later, and everyone forgot about the parcel, and the homeowners calling us going, you left everything back there, and it's still a fire hazard. Well, so sorry, I forgot about that. Or the fire department, when they did their inspection, talked about it. So we said, no, it's all got to be cleaned out.
All right, one last question. You have listed here, plants to be avoided and not removed, the milkweed and the milk vetch. Are these people capable enough to identify these plants? So they know when they're coming up against them?
Yes. Very. The owners, being a smaller company, the owners, in addition, they're being the owners and the project managers, they're also out there with their equipment doing the work also.
Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. Any other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion for this recommendation. Authorizing the general manager to enter into agreement. Director Lang, motion. Director Cusworth, second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. All right, thank you. And then we have item 9C, award bid for Corneo Creek West Dog Park Improvement Project. I've already been informed that this goes right to Administrator Hare.
Yes, again, more, the birthday just keeps on coming here. So with this project, several recommendations, and we'll kind of go over in a little more detail in a second, but just want to be very specific here. We want to, recommendations, one's waiving a minor irregularity in G2K Construction, who is our low responsive bidder, because we got a protest from United Construction, so it would be denying United Construction's protest of G2K, Built All Construction, and FS Contractors bid submittals. We have to determine that the project is categorically exempt from CEQA, and we have to appropriate another additional $180,000 towards the project from the district-wide fund. And then finally, if we do all the first four, we would recommend awarding the bid to G2K just for slightly under $1.1 million, plus another contingency. So it's a totaling $1.18 million for the parking lot, landscape, utility connections, and the prefab restroom building and shade structures. Just starting off with the CEQA. We consider, staff considers this a class 3 exemption, that you're allowed to have construction of limited numbers of new small facilities or structures. We're paving an existing parking lot, and we're adding a prefabricated restroom and some small shade structures. There already is a porta potty out there. This is kind of more formalizing that. So we feel this is an exemption to CEQA. Give me a little history of the project. We originally put this out to bid in September of 2017. And at that point, it didn't have the shade structures in it. And the bids came out a little higher than anticipated. So the board rejected all the bids, authorized us to go rebid the project. And what we did at that point, we split it into two different projects. Just say like we could award A or B, and A being one was like the parking lot and the B was the permanent restroom. And so when the bids came back, still too much. We didn't think it was it wasn't worth it at the time, higher anticipated costs. So we said, hey, the board said, let's reject all these bids. And then let's re-look at this in the next 10-year process. So we did. So we put some money aside in the next 10-year budget process. And as part of the Woolsey fire settlement in April 2020, we put in some additional money towards this project. And so we put it out to bid. At that time, it was just the parking lot and the restroom. But I think it was 2 years later, it was going to be like year 1 and year 3, we had a shade structure. And at the time, we didn't know if it was going to be one large one that straddles both large and small dogs or two smaller ones. So we went with the two smaller ones. So instead of doing the parking lot and restroom in year 1 and then the shade structure in year 3, we combined those projects and put them all together. So with all that, we said, hey, let's go out to bid. And we had a great time. Never in my 30 years of job walks, we had 28 people attend the job walk, including Zoom. We had about 13 on Zoom and 15, to the point where, because usually you just stand there and it's, we were like this and go, okay, everyone sign in. We actually had to move out of the way because we were like blocking traffic because we were all being socially distanced, so we all said, okay, let's all move over there because we're blocking traffic. There's so many people. So that was a lot of fun. In addition to that, we also had an alternate, in addition to the shade structures, parking lot and the restroom, we had alternates for smaller shade structures at Kimber neighborhood off-leash area and Walnut Grove neighborhood off-leash area. We had some conversations with Caneo off-leash people and they wanted to partner with us on that. So again, that was fun because then we have to visit all the sites with all the contractors. So we actually had to, all 15 in person and 13 on Zoom had to travel to Kimber and then travel to Walnut Grove, and that was fun. We had a big caravan doing all that. So we got all the bids back, and G2K was the lowest, we feel is the lowest responsive bidder. However, due to the cost, their recommendations based on the base bid, again, which is A, B, and C, which is a shade structures, parking lot, landscaping, restroom, and utility connections at $1.099 million. And the bid alternate, the shade structures, is a little bit out of our price range, and even with COLA's contribution, and it's something we're still talking with them, so it might be a future project we have, whether it's the matching grant or some other way we can get those done. But so we're only looking at A, B, and C, and not the bid alternate. And so regularly this is what we do, and we'd ask for you to award it. But as you see, this was also a pretty voluminous board report because we got a board report. Or we got a protest from United Construction. When we have protests, we just don't tell you, hey, we think the protest is wrong, and this reason. We provide attachments, so if you want to make the determination yourself that you think staff's interpretation is incorrect, you actually see the actual documents that we made our recommendations on, rather than just taking staff's word for it. And again, it's so large because United Construction was the 4th lowest bidder, so they protested number 1, number 2, and number 3. So it's just whatever the information we're providing you is times 3, not just times 1. In addressing the United Construction's protest, he said that one of his, for G2K, which was to us the most important one, that bid item A, which was the shade structure, his subcontractor list, he said we did not list USA Shade as the installer. And what we do, for consistency, we spec out USA Shade product, but we don't require that USA Shade be the installer. And so the G2K was saying that he's got a subcontract name, I think it's Ortco is the installer. So the work is being done, but it's just not being done by USA Shade, and there's nothing wrong with who does it. The prime contractor can do it, or any sub can do it. Just the product is what we're worried about. And then he also protested for G2K that there was not a licensed landscaping contractor, C27, to do the landscaping work. But he does have a subcontractor. The listed subcontractor that he has is it's a B license, and a B license can do landscaping work. And bear with me on this one. A B general engineering contractor can, as long as he does 2 other trades over and above framing and carpentry, right? Things besides framing and carpentry, he can do anything. Because a B trumps a C, for lack of a better word, because he can do more things. So the B contractor listed is doing trenching, paving, and landscaping. So he meets the requirements. He's doing more than 2. If he was just doing landscaping, that's not allowed. He's doing more than just landscaping. And we are actually saying, and I apologize, let me go back to the irregularity. The irregularity we have, if you go to page, I think I have marked as 273. Yeah, if you look at page 273, this is the subcontractor submission from G2K. And if you look on the left-hand side, just outside the column, on the 3rd column down, he's got the words alternate number 1 there. He put that in his mind, he put Ortco is doing the installation for alternate number 1, the Walnut Grove and Kimber, which we're not doing. But we asked him, he goes, yeah, what I meant was he's doing the base bid and also doing the alternate 1. So but we're not doing the alternate. So he has listed an installer to do that. It was just for like we're at a minor irregularity. And then what's most important, I won't really get too much into the protest on numbers 2 and 3, very similar kind of arguments that the United had in their protest letter. But when it all comes down to it, the irregularity is minor by just saying it's an alternate, he was doing alternate 1, he's doing everything. But the most important thing is you look at whether the board does have the ability to waive minor irregularities, that G2K didn't receive an unfair competitive advantage, and the irregularity does not alter the base bid nor otherwise defeat the goals of preventing corruption in the public contracting process. Therefore, the bid irregularity can be waived by the board. So it's just because he put the words alternate 1 doesn't mean he won the bid because of that. So the board does have the ability to waive that. So it's all said and done. Staff's recommending awarding the bid to G2K. They're qualified. They perform projects of similar size and scope with other local agencies. And the bid summary is attached with everyone who bid. And with that, I'm available for questions, and hopefully I made it very clear. And I'll get no questions.
Thank you. Director Lang, we'll start with you tonight.
Okay, thank you, sir. Couple things, Tom. I don't recall. What were the bids that came in, 5, 7 years ago?
Sure.
Are we saving money just in hindsight?
Well, it's interesting. So when the bid with contingency last time that we rejected was for the parking lot and the restroom was $900,000. And so then when we put the budget estimate together, because we said that the shade structures are going to be between $75,000 and $100,000. Let's go with inflation, add another 100,000, boom, 1.1. Yeah, so it was 900 plus 200 from what was before. But we actually, unfortunately, we are seeing this with even our smaller projects, which the board does too. Yeah, the costs are, I was jazzed with the 28 guys. I thought we were going to get a really low cut price. But, so we took our just like I said, 4 years ago, yeah, you're totally correct. 4 years ago, we put this out, put those numbers together, added some fluff, and we still ended up $180,000 short.
Okay. And then one last question. At one of the meetings, on-site meetings, there was some discussion about the placement of the
Yes.
restroom. And I recall your comments, but can you expand on?
Sure, and thanks for bringing that up. I actually forgot to mention that because I did put my little tab on it. So if you go to, it's just after page 280, it's a little fold out and it kind of shows you what we're doing. I meant to go with that, and thanks for the segue there, George.
You're welcome.
If you look in the lower left-hand corner of the parking lot, so that would be the southwest corner, we put the restroom there for several reasons. And one is the location and the proximity to the entire complex, not just the dog park, but to Las Flores Community Garden and ETI, so they can also use that restroom. And also the largest cost, one particular cost of this, the sewer line is actually located, I think, I'm trying to remember the name of I think it's called like Panorama Court. There's a cul-de-sac about 1,500 lineal feet southwest of this location. So if we had kept the sewer line in the southeast location, we would have added, another 100, 150 feet of sewer line, and the cost would just another 10% cost for that. So by locating it more central, it's more for the users and also kept the cost a little bit down. And also like what Georgia said, when we met on site out there with the dog, we had a couple meetings out there with with patrons, provide some really good input, because one of our first thoughts was, oh, we'll put the shade structure there. It's about a 34 by 34 shade structure. And the residents, oh, no, hey, what we need to do is put it over here because we want, for lack of a word, 2/3 to 3/4 big wide open so we could throw the ball. And if you guys could put them up more closer to the interior fence, and then that way that's the place to, that's your passive place, and then your more active places could be in the more open spaces. And they even had some good comments about how many tables we should put in there. Because I think, again, top of my head, I think we were looking at like 6 or 7 or 8 tables under there. Like, no, we don't want the dogs to hang out, because when the dogs hang out, that's when things can, dogs can, bad things get in. Yes, they can get into it. So this is just a place to rest and for some shade. So we got a lot of great input, and actually the project was fairly well received. And we also have we've done, like I said, we did a lot of that outreach too. And when we roll out the project, we're definitely going to paper the place with the schedule. We actually have a link on our website, which will get everyone to refer to. We have got our list of interested parties, and we've made it really clear to people too, like, tell people to email us, because we don't want someone showing up, or if we have to do a temporary closure of the entire place for a week or 2 weeks or a month. I don't want someone showing up going, hey, where am I going to exercise my dog? So we're trying to get as much information as possible. That to me is the most important, is the scheduling and the communication we'll have with the public. And we'll do our best with that and see what happens. But so far, fairly well received. And then if the board agrees with all the recommendations, we'll have our pre-construction conference with the contractor in 15 to 30 days, and then hopefully get going on a schedule in about 45 to 60 days. But again, we got all that information out ahead of time, but we're trying to keep it open as much as possible, whether it's just a little bit or a lot of it, or the whole thing, or none at all.
Tom, you triggered a question during the paving and construction of the parking lot. Will there be some temporary parking available for the?
That's a consideration. Yes, we're going to talk to the contractor because we want to see how much, what we can do if we were going to park on the ETI side or the Las Flores Community Garden side, but then make it safe enough to go up to Flores and walk over and around the parking lot. So yeah, we'll do our best to keep it open as much as possible.
No further questions.
All right, Director Cuthbert? No. Director Holt? Director Huffer.
You mentioned the sewage line, that was the primary reason 4 or 5, whatever years ago was that was so expensive.
Yeah.
It made the whole project too expensive. So
Yes.
now that we have the funding available.
Yes.
It is, okay.
Good? Okay, all right, thank you. I would have to echo Mr. Hare's comments about a well-worth outreach workshop, whatever you call those. I mean, these people were just, providing this input. It was just like, oh, gosh, I mean, talk about dog whisperers. It's like I was learning about, dogs and the way they think and the way they act. It was just that whole social community. And they had them wired. I mean, it's almost like they knew exactly what dog and what behavior certain dogs have. It was amazing, but they did provide some excellent input. And hats off to our staff who just, oh, okay, fine, well, let's take that into consideration. It wasn't like, no, we already designed this, it looks great. They were more than willing to accept and incorporate that input, so.
And I think we got, if I can't remember if you guys were there on this particular meeting, we did get approval from a user in that. So Andrew and I were, talking here, and we actually had it on Zoom too at the same time, and everyone's back here, and I was, the Vanna White, and I had 2 or 3 boards, so I put a board down over there, and all of a sudden the whole group was laughing. I'm like, what did I do? How am I, my pants fall down or something like that? You look around now, there's a dog peeing on our boards. He sniffed on the boards and started peeing on them. Like, okay, that's a good sign. That's not a bad sign. He's saying, I'm marking this. This is my project. This is my project. So, that was a good omen. We considered.
Yeah, so again, thank you for doing that. I think just another testament, not only to our staff wanting to make things right, but then hearing the comments and incorporating that. So thank you for you and your staff to do that. Okay, we have a recommendation here that has 5 components regarding the bid irregularities, the protest, CEQA, appropriations, and awarding of the bid. Do I have any questions, comments, or a motion? Director Cuthbert?
I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendation 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Thank you. Do I have a second to that?
I'll second.
Director Huffer makes a second. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Thank you, staff, for moving that along with us. Okay,
And good
No.
job, birthday boy.
yeah. He's not through yet. He has one more chance to speak up. Okay, now we have reports and announcements. We have a few reports in the packet for information items. Any questions on any of those to recreation, dedication, budget performance? Okay, we'll move on to department reports. And before he gets too much rest, we'll go right to Mr. Hare for any Parks Division report comments, please.
No other reports tonight.
Any questions of Mr. Hare? Okay, well, I do have 2 questions, Mr. Hare.
Okay.
Number 1 is the status of our playground improvements. We had 3 playgrounds. Just curious what the status of those 3 playgrounds?
Yes, so Pepper Tree and Glenwood should be open to the public next week. Pepper Tree had a little bit of delay, unfortunately, if you remember, like at Kimber Park, one part was not shipped with the rest of it. And so it took us a little extra, because it was supposed to be Pepper Tree, Glenwood, then Wildwood, but they both should be open next mid to late next week. They both look fantastic. And it's great just even looking at the anticipation of people out there. I've seen so many people just even using like a Glenwood. So many people are excited about that improvement because then remember, in addition to the playgrounds at Pepper Tree, we did fitness equipment, which has been open for 2 or 3 weeks now throughout and then Glenwood, not as part of this project, but just recently we did a perimeter walkway path. That's been very popular. And Wildwood, we just finalized the layout for the playground today, and I believe the equipment's on site, and so we're probably looking at about another 2 or 3 weeks for that one to be installed, inspected, and opened. And then actually, that one's a little tricky in that we actually had to work with the gas company. There's a gas line underneath there, and we had to work with the school district for access because we had to go through Wildwood Elementary.
Oh,
Yeah, just because after it's a
Yes,
big,
drops
big
right
down,
down
big
there.
downhill.
Mhm.
So they were, a school district was nice enough to let us go through the corner of their yard to, we had to refence it. So, but but it's going well. But all three are going well. And that, to me, I don't know, I'm direct customers, if you've been out there, the Glenwood one that's cool. And I really like that one a lot. It's got a zip line to it too.
It's a huge improvement. And besides the walking trail, they also installed, I don't know how many oak trees.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
they
yeah.
made
Plenty of,
like a
yeah,
little
right.
oak tree forest around
Yeah,
the,
plenty of oak trees those are mitigation trees from the 299 Teal Boulevard project.
Yes, that's right.
So we got a lot of
Okay.
mitigation trees, and then, and then even we're gonna be putting some benches out there. Glenwood that one looks, I love that playground and
good.
that park. That's gonna be awesome. I can't wait for that one.
It needed its.
Yeah.
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 And then lastly, is Canal Creek Southwest going to open just the week after that?
10 days. No.
Okay. Just
Canal
want to know how
Creek's-
things.
Yeah, Canal Creek Southwest, we're finalizing our submittal to the city. When we did the interfund loan 4
Yes,
weeks ago, 6
yes.
weeks ago. So we gave the consultant the go-ahead to move ahead with the first submission to the city. We handed it off to the city 2 weeks ago, I'll say, and we try to remind them, it's just a park, with the bathroom and this and that. But so that I would just top of my head guess will probably be out to bid more in the May timeframe, and maybe back June or July for award of the contract. And if we get some good numbers back and good contractors, and then probably start construction in late summer, early fall.
Very good. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. And all right, Ms. Callis, Recreation Division report. Thank you for hanging with us tonight. That I just was curious, where in the world is the Callis family tonight?
Oh, we are home now, so we have
Okay.
successfully made it back from our trip.
Very good. Good to see you tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair Nichols and members of the board. So just a couple of things in your packet. You guys got all the highlights. So just a couple of updates. The You've Been Egged is actually sold out. It sold out very, very quickly. Thousand Oaks Teen Center is getting more teens back into programs now. They've got some programs running and they're doing well on that. Patty had her lucky leprechaun bingo and it was sold out. And I think if you looked on Facebook, there were some really cute videos of stuff that was going on. In your handout, it talks about the classical concert. Scott gave me some information. So if you're interested in participating in that, he said it's very, very good. You just go to hillcrestarts.com. You can buy a ticket. For family, $20, a single person, $15. It's all on the honor system there. And then you can watch it anytime. Once you buy the ticket, it will send you a YouTube link and you would just watch it on home on your smart TV. Let's see. Other things, Right On, they are doing a lot of things with Dos Vientos. You guys had asked some questions. It's an independent contractor situation. So it's like a 60-40 split or a 70-30 split. We contract with them just like we would contract with other businesses in our community for programs. And then we bring the kids go out there, take their lessons, and it's really Right On that's running it. Staff are prepping for the summer. We're in needs of lots of summer staff. We are excited. Our spring registration is looking really good. It's hard to compare apples to apples because we started summer registration, a program guide late. Last spring, we ended up giving all refunds to everybody and really didn't have a spring. But we are ahead of last year's numbers and ahead of 2 years ago numbers. So we're really taking that as a positive sign, and hopefully people will continue to sign up for the summer programs also. A couple other notes. Safe Passage. Yes, Tim is awesome. He is definitely the puzzle master. He gives us a lot of credit, which I appreciate, but he is amazing with the number of volunteers and other people in the community that he is working with. So it's really a lot of hands on deck there. And it's yes, we help, but he's got a lot of other
spokes in the fire. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but Charlene, our new marketing person, she's been with us a month now, is doing some nice things, and she will be reaching out to all of you guys just to introduce herself and get to know you a little bit. But Nellie, just so you know, we will have her look at, like Tom said, the our partner agencies are on the website. We'll make sure that it's pretty, if you have suggestions on how to make it easier to get to them, we can look at that. But she'll also want to meet with you in regards to the trifold that you were doing with the museums, and when you think that is a good time to get that back up and going, because I know that some of the museums are opening a little bit. So if we have the opportunity to help out with that, then we can get something going with that again also. And with that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Callis. Any questions? Yes, Director Huffer?
Yeah, Rochelle, is there any chance we're going to have any of the summer concerts this year?
Yes, sir. We are planning to have all of them. So at what level or how we have them, we're not sure yet. Right now, we're currently planning and working with the Oaks. Tisha over there has been working with us, and we're like tentatively planning, as long as they don't have anything going on in their parking lot, to do it like we did the last concert last year. So kind of that's the plan. There'll at least be that with a number and a small cost. We've already got all the concerts lined up. It'll be in your summer program guide. And we have all our sponsors already too. And like you mentioned earlier, we are planning on doing the 4th of July fireworks show. As far as if there will be any locations to congregate at this time, there is not. You get to watch it from your home if hopefully you live close enough to be able to see it. But as the times get closer, there may be some opportunities to do something, and we'll just try to keep that marketed on social media. If we are having the concert, right now it's planned to be in the parking lot at the Oaks. So if you buy a ticket to the concert, you will probably be allowed to sit there and watch the fireworks show, but there will only be so many spots available. If we can't gather, we'll probably do a virtual video, and those folks that aren't close enough to see it from their homes will be able to watch it on Facebook Live.
Okay, and how about any summer programming at McCray Ranch?
Yeah, they've got the movies coming back. I think they've advertised in the summer program guide at least 2 movies. We're in the red tier now, and I believe we are able to do some things indoors at about 10 or 25%, but luckily McCray Ranch does stuff outside. So I believe we will be okay to do some outside movies.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Any other questions of Ms. Callis? Okay, thank you for hanging with us and presenting this evening.
Happy birthday, Tom.
Oh,
He's in the restroom.
okay. Management Services Report, Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Chair Nichols. Members, I will keep it brief, as I suspect our general manager is probably going to report on some of this, but the last 2 weeks have been full of COVID-related changes. In addition to red tier, the Rescue Act does provide some interesting puzzles for us on an accounting side. Public agencies are now eligible for some of the tax relief options that weren't before, so we get to figure out how to do that. So that's been a lot of our work, and we're going to be getting some guidance from Lieber Cassidy on how to handle that. And so that's just our update and kind of taking on the new accounting side and some of the HR stuff along with going into the red tier. So with that, I'm available for questions.
Any questions? Okay, if not, thank you. And with that, we'll move to the general manager's report, sir.
Yes, thanks, Chair Nichols, members of the board. I will kind of riff off Melissa's last comment and kind of go a little step further. The federal relief package does indeed contemplate relief for consolidated units of government, which is kind of the federal speak for what a special district is under the definitions of the Act. So we do not get any direct relief funding from the Act. However, it is very clear that we are not, by virtue of not getting direct funding, we are not like on the outs like we were with the first 2 relief packages so far, but we can approach our higher units of government, i.e. your cities, counties, to seek reimbursement under all the different buckets under the act for expenses and lost revenues. So there isn't yet a clear formula for how that works, and it's not clear that it would be the county we approach or the city we approach. So there's a little bit of uncertainty as to where we would actually go to seek relief. So I've certainly already opened the channel through VCSDA, and the board's already, been part of the discussion. We've sent the letter to the county for our expenses, and we have been chatting with the city about, hopeful, relationship with them. So we're seeking some relief, but that is in part, it's not as easy as it is at other levels of government, where you just, like some of the private folks, get a $1,400 check in your account. Cities and counties just sort of get a check in their account. We don't get that. We have to kind of go and explain why we would be worthy of some sort of relief money. So that political process, if you will, is kind of starting. So just probably more on that. I just want to mention next Friday, the Ad Hoc Revenue Committee will be meeting with the consultants again to sort of formally look at the public opinion survey and determine whether and when we were ready to start going out. So could be as early as April or May to sort of measure that. And the results of that public opinion survey would then, of course, inform sort of our next steps. So that's really exciting. I did want to hold up and mention specifically, if you have not yet read, it's not as long as Tom's staff reports, but it's four-page letter with some dense attachment. The comment letter that Andrew and Tom on the planning side prepared in terms of our kind of CRPD remarks to the city about the effect of growth on the parks per population ratios in town and on our ability to provide a park within about a half a mile or a 10-minute walk. So rather than fill out the workbook, the general plan workbook they had at the city, rather than do that and provide the district's comments in that format, we kind of left that for individuals, any of us and any of the citizens. I did hear they got something like 2,000 responses, which is incredible. We chose to write this letter, so hopefully you get a chance to look at that. And I'm actually really surprisingly probably 60 hours of conversations and discussions about what it actually would look like and what it would mean, looking a little more deeply into some of the maps and the colors and the densities, talking about what would be the right approach and comment and how to best characterize the whole variety of issues and concerns. So this even though it's a relatively brief letter, there was a lot of thought into exactly what it says. So hopefully the city will take that into consideration as they're kind of figuring out their next steps. And again, they will take their three options or alternatives that they presented, probably come up with one, I'm going to guess, hybrid that takes into account as many comments as they can, and then eventually say, this is our draft land use map. This is what we really want the comments on. And so that'll be another round for us to provide input on what the city's general plan update looks like. Then just wanted to again say a big shout out and thanks on his birthday, Mr. Hare. That was a lot of work that just happened to all land on the same exact night, and happened to also be his birthday. So thank you, Tom, for all the work that went into that tonight's meeting. And with that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Any questions of the general manager? Yes, Director Huffer.
I just want to make sure I have it on my calendar correctly. You mentioned the revenue meeting, you said next Friday. I have it on
It's
my calendar.
Thursday. Sorry, it's Thursday. You're right.
Okay.
It's Thursday. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's Thursday.
Oh, yeah.
Thursday.
And then somewhere in the last couple of months, there was one of the legislative reports that we get mentioned something about the state, somebody at the state exploring the possibility of giving taxpayers a break by delaying property tax due dates hopefully that didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, I don't know that that's moved. There's lots of legislation that gets introduced that has a variety of concerning things in it that, through CSDA and our, essentially their association lobbyists, we get the information on what's kind of transpiring, what's going on with that. So a legislator threw that out as an idea, but a lot of governments quickly said, wait, well, how are we supposed to operate?
Yeah.
So,
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, nothing else? All right. Thank you, Mr. Friedel. Okay, next we have directors' reports and follow-up reports on meetings, conferences attended. Director Heffer, we'll start with you on this side.
All right, well, I know we went to one meeting. We were at the Costco meeting. It seemed very strange where we're in our Costco seat and giving something away, and we're in our CRPD seat and taking something in. So it seemed a little
Giveth
strange,
and
but
taketh, right?
yeah, that was the only meeting that I'm aware of. Just found out yesterday that I get to spend an extra 4 weeks doing taxes this
I
year.
was
So
going to
that's
ask
really
you about
exciting.
that. Yeah, okay. Director Holt?
I really haven't had any committee meetings or anything, but I want to say I went to the Arts and Crafts Fair at Orchard Park, which was beautifully held and arranged, and so many people. We got there early in the morning, and it was just great. I guess a lot of people just wanted to get out, and they had quite a crowd when we were there early in the morning. Not real early, but and I had never been before, so that was a first for me, even though they have it every year. But, anyway, that's about the limit.
Very good, thank you. Director Cusworth?
The museums are excited because they can start reopening. So I haven't been into meetings, but I've been on a few emails about how they're going to reopen. And the Stagecoach Inn, even though they've just been opened outside, their Ladies of the Caneo that I told you about, they had 50 or 60 people show up. For them on a Saturday, that's unheard of. So people are excited to get out and see things.
Yeah.
And my husband went to the McRae Ranch docent meeting. I was online with my students. But I guess they canceled the Caneo cookout, which I didn't think they would have to because they're outside when they do that. So I don't know, I guess, why it has its reasons. And as far as I know, they're going to be doing some movies in the summer. But anyway, I'm going to talk to Wyatt more about what's going on. But my husband said they're planning to do the cowboy cookout in the fall. Maybe they figure by then there will be very few restrictions. So anyway, but that's just from what my husband told me. So yes, I think that's about all I've done. No meetings really, just emails.
Very good. Director Lang?
Yes, thank you, Chair Nichols. VCSDA meeting, elected officers, and I had an MRCA meeting. And upcoming is the Moore Park Watershed Parks Recreation Conservation Authority Board meeting. And Jim, if we have a moment, I'd like to chat with you. And that's it.
Very good. Thank you. I had two official activities. One, as Director Huffer mentioned, was the Costco meeting on the 10th, where we gave the property away, and then tonight we take it. So one hand to the other, I guess. And then yesterday I had a board meeting with the California Association of Recreation and Park Districts. There's a good meeting. It's interesting to participate in those discussions. We actually had a very lively discussion over legislation, speaking of that, where there was a slate of items advanced by our legislative committee for support by the board. And there were 10 different items that they had identified. I forwarded that to our general manager for reference. But it's interesting to hear the discussion. You know, of course, I have to kind of sit back for a second. Okay, this is a statewide entity, and you've got small districts, large districts, unique districts, districts with wide varieties, you know, and the constituencies vary north to south, east to west. And, you know, some of those discussions, that kind of bubbles up. I mean, it's unintentional. It's not like they're trying to, but you realize, oh, that's right. They're not all like me. You know, it's not, they're not all a Caneo district. You know, they are different. And so as you try to work together as a team on representing the state as a whole for recreation as a whole, that really comes out of that bubbling. You realize, okay, what is the essence of that type of an organization and the value of that? So you do take, you really take that 30,000 foot level approach and say, gosh, does the Conejo Valley really care about that? Well, maybe, maybe not. But as a state, is it important? And so it does kind of give you that opens your mind a little bit and say, yeah, there's other perspectives, what may or may not be important, but overall. So it was a good discussion. I will say that it was not a unanimous vote, but it was a lively discussion. And we had some other things, appointing committee members. We had a vacancy to fill, a few other things. But I really appreciate the insight. It's a good group of people, and it is a mixture of elected officials and general managers. I think it's 6 electeds and three general managers, I think is how it goes. So we do get a good variety of folks like Jim who have this boots to the ground experience for decades, and then elected officials as well. So it was a good discussion. I've met with them a number of times now, and I look forward to continuing to work with them. So those are my reports.
And the
Yes,
conference is still on schedule?
Yes, the annual conference is still scheduled it was pushed from April to June, and still on schedule. It'll be in Monterey, and they are planning on moving forward. The host hotel, I don't remember the name offhand, is being very amenable because they realize that it's good for them and it's good for us. So, I mean, it's to the point where we have a 15-day window to say no thanks. And it goes both ways, because they're saying, hey, we need that flexibility too. So it's just a sign of the times. Back in the day, you're probably looking at 2 or 3 months as a minimum, and now we're down to 15 days where either party can say, yeah, this isn't going to work. But being the Zoom era that we're at, they're already saying, well, if that happens, we'll ramp up and do something different. But as of now, they're planning to move forward and maybe be one of the first organizations that actually has a live in-person conference.
Great.
That'll be in Monterey in June.
Good.
So be it. Yeah. Okay, so item number 12, request for status reports and items for subsequent agendas. Anybody for that? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 13, items for the public. Ms. Bermudez, do we have anybody waiting? Okay. All right, thank you for hanging with us. And Ian Kelly on the keyboards, thank you. No executive closed session?
No, sir.
Okay, and with that, I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you and have a good evening.